Looks like we've got everyone here. Let's call to order the meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals for Oconee County, November 30th, 2021. First order of business is to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? This is a rather involved meeting, a lot of ins and outs. I want to make sure we got those minutes right, so I assume you've all had a chance to review those.
They seem reasonable.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't at the meeting, so I will recuse myself.
Need to recuse yourself? Okay.
I wasn't here either, so.
Okay, so it sounds like there's 5 of us. All those in favor of approving the minutes of 7/26/21, please raise your hand.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, we have 4 in favor. All opposed? There are no opposed. Minutes are approved. Now let me talk a little bit about how we're going to address the issues tonight. We have 2 issues. The first one looks like it's going to be fairly straightforward. We'll handle that first. What we'll do is we'll give the applicant time to state their request. In the past, we've limited that to 5 minutes. Given that the requests are fairly complex, we'll allow 7 or 8 minutes. Please don't be overly verbose, but we'll allow 7 or 8 minutes for the requesters to make their case. If there's opposition, particularly on the second request we have, Arrowhead, would be very good if we could have 1 or maybe 2 people summarize the opposition. What are your concerns? What are the problems? And then anyone else who has further comments, and you've signed up, we'd be glad to hear you, but please don't just get up and say the same things. We've got almost 100 emails that we've all been able to review. We understand what the issues are. So in the interest of brevity, want everyone to have a chance to say their say, but please be brief if you can. We'll go through that after there's been any discussion from the audience for or against. The developer will have their chance to make any comments they want concerning the comments they've heard. Then we'll be able to ask questions. In the meantime, we'll be able to get any input we need from planning staff, and then finally we'll take a vote on the issues. Okay, first issue we have. Variance request application number VA 21010. Seaman Whiteside and Associates Incorporated. Paul Talbert is requesting a variance allowing the side setback for lot lines dividing attached single-family units to be reduced to 0 feet, thus allowing the construction of individually platted attached single-family units. The lot numbers are 271-00-01-040, -943, -942, -941, 939, and 938. These are unaddressed parcels with the closest address of 201 West Cherry Road, Seneca, South Carolina. Okay. Who do I have the pleasure of?
My name is Paul Talbert. I'm representing the engineer of record for this development.
Okay.
Appreciate your time this evening. Thank you all for hearing our case. Representing the Phase 2 variance for the for the Pier North. This is related to, as you stated, the 0 lot line variance for a for-sale product. And I'm not going to belabor this. What I would like to do is just answer the 4 questions that are revolved around the variance. So if you're okay with it, I'm just going to go ahead and read the responses.
Please do.
Okay, so for question number 1, or comment number 1, the owner wishes to develop the subject property as attached single-family units that are individually platted for sale. The code currently does not accommodate individually platted attached single-family units due to the 5-foot side setback requirement for single-family residential lots in the control-free district. The owner requests a variance allowing the side setback for lot lines dividing attached single-family single-family units to be reduced to 0 feet, thus allowing the construction of individually platted attached single-family units. All other setbacks, including side setbacks on end units, will meet Oconee County code. This will allow the owner to offer attached single-family units for sale, providing an increased variety of housing products at various price points in the district. Comment number 2. Regarding circumstances affecting the subject property, no, the circumstances are due to an incompatibility between the existing single-family zoning ordinance and the desire to provide attached single-family dwellings on individually platted lots. Comment number 3, The requirement for a 5-foot side setback on all single-family residences prevents the development of attached single-family units for sale rather than rental. And finally, comment number 4, the proposed variance will not harm but enhance the character of the district. The subject property is adjacent to multifamily apartments. Allowing attached single-family units will provide a more seamless transition in density and use from the adjacent multifamily units to the proposed single-family detached units and other surrounding single-family development. The use of attached single-family units will also allow units to be clustered, thus providing greater opportunity for common open space as seen in the site plan. The increased opportunity for home ownership rather than rental will increase the investment in the surrounding community of those living in the subdivision. And I'm happy to answer any questions that follow.
Okay, so this, your development is designed for sales to single families?
That is
Is
correct.
it student housing or?
No, sir.
So this is different than the pier as we know it today?
Correct, yes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So it's single-family home?
Yes, sir.
Single-family homes. And you're marketing it to as single-family, you're not going to market to the students?
Correct.
Anyone have any questions?
So, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. So will every home be built right next to each other, or is this just some of the homes would be attached?
Do you have the site plan up? Yes, I'm sorry. The site plan that's in front of you, can you zoom?
walk over and show us?
out? Yeah, I can do that, absolutely. I'll make it easy for y'all. Okay, so the southern portion, here it goes. All right, so this would be pretty much the dividing line. These are attached units and everything to the south, extending out. So this is the existing multifamily apartments here. This would all be attached. Everything to the north would be detached.
Okay.
It's roughly, I believe it's a 50-50 split, roughly. The detached units to the north, I'm sorry, so the density is greater on the south. It's 222 proposed and 115 to the north.
So essentially what you're asking for is what I would know is townhomes.
Yes, sir.
Like 4 or 5 units wide, that are obviously contiguous, and you're going to sell individual plots then that those townhomes sit on,
Yes, sir.
as opposed to just the house, townhouse. You're going to sell the land also.
Correct. Fee simple, yes, sir.
Okay. If you just stand in there, does staff have any comments on this? No comments? No comments. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, no one signed up to comment on this. We do have some emails, and I just received these, so I'm going to go through them in some detail. My opposition, this is from a gentleman named Craig Schwesinger, who lives at Morningside Heights in Seneca. My opposition centers on non-compliance to county's master plan for this project area, which is a fundamental element of this variance request. This density of units per acre is a blatant disregard for the residents and taxpayers living in this area. The builder developer has given you a blank check, maximizing his profits, and simply wants you to sign it. I say no. Send it back and request modification for a more reasonable density. This doesn't make sense for anyone but him. Our little community in Morningside Heights has been there for quite some time. Egress for evening shade to West Cherry Road is a risky process. I'm amazed we haven't had a serious accident facility at this point. This variance is approved. It will greatly compound a traffic study outlining the effects of this type of traffic on both Cherry Road and J.P. Stevens. Needs to be completed prior to any decision. Warrants will show signalization will be required, perhaps on both thoroughfares. Perhaps a shared expense with the county and the builder developer will be an appropriate course of action. Street widening, turn pockets, the study may show a variety of measures to mitigate these issues. Okay. A comment from a George Nasser in Seneca. He's an adjoining property owner, and he is concerned about density and construction. Okay, from Mr. James A. O'Connor, he is also concerned about the density and traffic. Okay, and from a Kathy O'Connor, I have concerns regarding the subject variance request allowing the side setback for lot lines dividing attached single-family units to be reduced to 0 feet. I strongly object to this variance request. I believe that building high-density housing in this area will detract from the serenity and view, adversely impacting the real estate values of nearby properties. Okay, that's all the emails we have. And that's the extent of it. Is there anyone here who wants to speak on this subject? I want to make sure everyone has a chance to say something. Yes, sir.
I just have a simple question.
Please come up, state your name.
I apologize. My name is Patrick Tierney. I live in Salem, Middle Dakota County, Windcrest. I just have a simple question. Is that from the materials that were sent before and the materials I have in front of me, I don't understand where this is. So could I get a little bit more detail about where this
I think that's a fair question.
actually exists? Thank you.
It's a fair question. Okay, so are there any other comments to make? Like a caution, I'm going to ask you to come up in just a second.
Yeah, please. I just want to know.
We'll talk about just, I just want to make a caution to everybody here. A lot of people are going to vote up, speak on the subject. Second request, please make sure your comments are heard if you have them to say. We want to hear those. I just said we don't want a lot of redundancy. I had, in a previous request we dealt with, I had a person come up afterward and say, hey, you didn't consider this. Well, no, we didn't, because we didn't know about it. So if you've got a pertinent issue, please bring it forward. Okay, enough said. Sir?
Well, I'm curious.
What's your name?
I'm Chris Leonard. Looking at that, I'm curious about what are the cost range of those houses that are going to be sort of townhome type homes? And are they priced good for first-time home buyers?
Okay.
And then, so that can enable them to make that step to move to the next step. Because that gets limited a little bit. So, if it's priced for first-time home buyers and stuff like that, and you had a nice new community, that's pretty sweet. People got to start somewhere.
Okay. We'll ask Mr. Tolbert to address those. Are there any other questions or comments concerning this request? I don't see anyone.
On the side up here.
Yes, sir. Please come up here and state your name.
My name is Roman Matonis. Roman Matonis. I live at Point Harbor, and our association, we have 2 points, Point East and West, total homes of 69. I oppose this change because I feel it will devalue the rest of the homes in that area. Not only that, I'm very concerned how much more boat traffic is going to bring into Point Harbor. We're right across from the boat launch, and all that is just going to increase it negatively.
Are you talking about the request for near on Cherry Road and Stevens Road, or you're talking about that?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Any other questions? I don't see anyone. Okay, Mr. Talbot, would you please address the issues? We'd like to know, people want to know where this is.
Understood.
We know where it is, but
Point us on your finger on
Yeah.
it. I think.
Okay, so this is Lake Hartwell. This is Lake Hartwell. This is the existing multifamily. This development would wrap around up to the top where it says Ring Neck Drive. That's the same property. Whoop, okay. Yep, there you go. So this is the limits of the property along J.P. Stevens, north and south, and West Cherry, east and west. So those parcels that are contained here.
So then south of Cherry Road there is where the pier is located. That's the large student housing development.
Correct.
It's existing.
It is a convenient name. I apologize for the confusion of that, but I think this is, I'm sorry, if you'll zoom out another one too. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So, yeah, that's it. So this is Lake Hartwell. Lake Hartwell. There's an existing sewer plant right here. Okay, just want to make sure I had that right.
Okay, and then across the lake is Clemson University.
Correct. Yes, sir.
That's where Clemson is.
Okay, so.
Everybody clear on where we're talking about? I'm sorry, I
was trying to
didn't.
picture in my mind,
You're
where it was
good.
laid
So
out.
I've got the developer with me. They're here tonight and represent the project as well.
Sure, that's fine.
And he would like to answer this gentleman's request about the.
If you'd state your name, please, sir.
Yeah, Chip Orson, Four Star Group,
Chip Warson, okay.
manager. I manage land acquisition for the developer. Great question about price point. We get that quite a lot, especially in meetings like these. Just to elaborate, first and foremost, we let the market set the price point of these homes. We don't necessarily go in and say, hey, this is exactly what it's going to be. Let the builders build the market. With that being said, the variety of product that we're going to offer here in this project is not just limited to what we've seen tonight on the north phase. We also have, what's our total count on the south side?
160-ish.
160-ish lots on the south portion, just south on what we call an additional phase of this project. That combined with the north phase, we have product that goes from townhomes, which was what we're discussing tonight, all the way to virtually estate lots. And that will cover a vast variety of price points from your mid-twos all the way up to your fives and sixes. So this is kind of a full-service project in terms of price point. So while I do understand people being concerned about their home values being impacted, the best thing I can say to that is I've been in this business for a good bit of time. I haven't seen developments like this impacted, especially with such a wide variety of these new homes being built at such different price points. That's the most I can speak to that. But like I said, it's going to be a vast variety of product. We're going to hit a lot of different price points. At least our builders are going to hit a lot of different price points with their product on these individual lots.
Okay. And can either of you address the issue of boat traffic? You're not on the water, as far as I know.
Not for this, not for the one that's under question tonight. No, sir.
That's the issues tonight. Yeah.
Correct. Okay, so I will go back and
Can either of you
address.
answer the question that was in the emails around density study?
Yes, sir, absolutely. So, in response to the comment about density, the variance that's before you tonight is strictly to discuss whether there is a for sale product or a for rent product. If we were by right, we've communicated with staff and they said, I believe that they support this, I won't put them on the spot. The density would remain identical if the variance were to be denied tonight. The density will not change. It is just that it will be a different product for rent as opposed to for sale fee simple lots. Okay, so same number of lots that would be if variance is approved, same number if the variance is denied. Related to the traffic concerns, we've already employed and completed a traffic study it's been commissioned and completed, sorry. And the results of that traffic study, obviously, those have to apply, or those have to abide by SCDOT methodology. So the traffic consultant for this project has already completed that with the approval of SCDOT. Any improvements to traffic flow to any of the surrounding streets will be addressed in this development as required by the traffic study and SCDOT.
So has the traffic study been completed and you
Yes,
already
sir.
know what you're going to have to do on the roads, on Cherry and Stevens?
Yes, sir. It has been completed.
Okay, so you've committed to do that as part of the development?
Correct.
Okay.
In order to finish our SCDOT permitting for this in the future, once we get through the county, then yes, there's the improvements. Those improvements will have to be addressed.
So are those improvements, you said that you've had the traffic study done, so are you looking at widening, going to a 4-lane?
I actually had not seen the traffic study, so I couldn't tell you what the improvements are, only that it has been completed and SCDOT has approved the methodology of it. So any of the improvements that are in the traffic study must be addressed.
Sounds like we have some input.
I can speak to that. I'm Tricia Chasen. I'm
Say again, please.
Tricia Chasen,
Tricia, thank you.
the entitlement manager for Four Star for this project. Ramey Kemp has submitted and gotten approval from SCDOT Regional Office for turn lanes into our parcel that's up for discussion tonight. There'll be a right-hand turn lane and a left-hand turn lane off of Cherry Road into our development. So it will be widened significantly for turning traffic to remove them from the through traffic lanes.
So the only entrance you have is off Cherry Road.
We have two entrances. One is off Cherry Road and the other is off, forgive me, I don't know the road name here.
Stevens Road?
JP Stevens?
JP Stevens, yep. So this is the entrance here in the front. We'll have a right-hand turn lane westbound, a left-hand turn lane eastbound. And then this intersection up here that's proposed off JP Stevens, there's no improvements required because it'll be a secondary access. The other access point will be here, adjacent to the multifamily for emergency vehicles only. It'll be gated to prevent additional traffic from using that intersection.
You don't have any questions about traffic or any of the other issues with?
That was a big,
You know, that, to me, that's been,
Traffic.
sounds like we've addressed it, so.
that's a very, that density in that area with the pier and everything. I drive there every day going back and forth to work, and it's
times.
very.
It'll be heavily traveled.
Yeah, the traffic study also analyzes other intersections in the area, and no improvements were required. And then SCDOT has a funded project that's in development now to improve the intersection at JP Stevens and Cherry Road. So SCDOT is going to be fixing that intersection, and our project has no impact to the other adjacent intersections in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you. As I understand it, to reiterate, as I understand it, if we do not approve this variance, that will not affect the density of the, you'll just be forced to rent rather than sell.
Yeah, our intent is to
On
be
the
able to sell.
townhouses.
Yes, our intent is to be able to sell lots to families and individuals rather than have a for-rent product in that area.
Okay. Any other questions for these folks before we? Staff have any further comments on this, around
The density.
density or anything?
It's control-free, we don't have anything for density. And as of right, they can do this is just the lot lines, that's
The only issue before us really is the lot line.
the lot lines, correct.
Okay, thank you, folks, appreciate it.
Would not be in place if they weren't transferring land with it.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, are we ready to proceed toward making a decision here, folks? Okay. We have to, just for your information, we answer 4 questions. We have to answer 4 questions specified in the ordinance. And we have to answer all those in the affirmative in order to finally approve the variance, or if we don't answer an affirmative, we disapprove the variance request. Okay. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, could I, all in favor that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions, please raise your hand. We have 7 in favor, no opposed. Second question, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none? All those in favor, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. I see 7 in favor, no opposed. Question C, because of these conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, that one bothers me a little bit, because if in fact it's turned down, there'd just be more rentals, but it's still gonna be the utilization of the property, the same number of homes. So I'm not sure that we can say that that one applies. I'm having a little trouble with that one. I don't know about the rest of you.
Anyone else have thoughts?
The difference would be that it would be a rental unit for the person living in it didn't own it. This way, they own the townhouse and the land under it. And usually you own that, you have more pride in your ownership.
I guess where I come out is, they're wanting to make these units all for sale, and I think it would be appropriate to have all the units in the neighborhood for sale as opposed to a mixture of rentals and for sale. I guess I don't see that, although we sometimes have trouble with the wording here, I guess I don't see where that's a major issue.
I'll
Okay,
make a motion.
but we've already have a motion and a
Oh,
second
okay, I'll
to
second
approve. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. Okay, I have 7 in favor, none opposed. The authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent uses or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. I have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. We have concerns raised in emails here about traffic and density and housing values and whatnot. So
I think they've been addressed, so.
Yeah.
that's,
And I think the fact that the homes are gonna be purchased gives better value than if they were rental homes.
I agree. I don't see
And I think it's a better situation for all involved.
I agree, again, my concern, because it's gonna be the same density either way.
Yeah.
But my concern was the traffic, and it looks like they've already started to handle that, so that, I'm good with that.
yeah, as long as they've been through the SCDOT, and that really is the golden rule. It's not, you're not gonna change that, so. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. I have 7 in favor, none opposed. Okay, final question then. Based on the evidence presented to the board, do I hear a motion that the proposed variance be approved?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. I have 7 in favor, no opposed. Thank you. Your request is approved. And obviously, if anyone's free to leave, if you came here for the first request, everyone's free to leave, that's not a problem. Okay, our second request. Variance request application number VA 21-011. Ridgewater Engineering and Surveying, Joe Meters, is requesting an 18.1-foot variance from the 50-foot right-of-way for the entrance of the subdivision due to the end of the existing road not making full access onto the property, and only having a prescriptive ditch to ditch right-of-way. TMS number 150-00-01-459. Unaddressed parcel with the closest address of 599 Ellenberg Road, Seneca, South Carolina, 29672. Okay, same rules apply. The applicant, please come forward and make a presentation on what you want to do.
Thank you very much.
Hold it to like 7 or 8 minutes, that's fine.
I hope you can get it done in 8. So Andy and Wesley are handing out some additional material. You've got a black binder that has a clip on it. If you'll unclip it, the first 7 pages are big, full 11 by 17 maps, just to make it easier to read. They're the same thing that we're going to see on the screen. I'll go ahead and begin. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board and respective staff and members of the public. Thank you for your time and consideration as we come before you seeking a variance. My name is Rhea Smith, and I'm a member of the development team at Lake Huey Real Estate. I'm an 11th generation Oconee County native and currently reside on the Lake Huey waterfront. I have with me tonight on our development team Andy Lee, who's seated to the right. He's the broker in charge and owner of Lake Huey Real Estate. Wesley White, who is president of Ridgewater Engineering and Surveying, and our counsel Larry Brandt. I'm presenting to you our criteria for this parcel to be granted a variance based on our individual case of unnecessary hardship of an ordinance. I feel confident that at the conclusion of this presentation, we will have made a clear explanation of each of the findings of the 4 general criteria to grant a variance. We understand there have been some public concerns. Later on, we plan to address those concerns, and we also thank the public for making their voices heard. Before getting into the criteria, I'd like to clarify that the purchase of this parcel predates the existing road ordinance. At the time of purchase, no variance would have been needed to go straight into construction. However, given that we entered one of the most severe economic recessions in U.S. history, it would have been unwise timing to do so. Here's what specifically we're requesting a variance on. Please reference page 1, exhibit 1 in your packet, and it is also shown on the screen.
Give me 1 second. Does everyone be able to get their folder open? See your...
Well, it's
It's the type
got a
that.
hinge on it.
Okay.
Okay, everyone got page one? Okay.
Okay, we are asking for a variance for the width of the right-of-way on a small portion of road we are building. So if you'll reference here, it's this small portion right there, and Wesley, you may have to point as well with the pointer being small. The vast majority of the road will have a 50-foot right-of-way. Understand, we're asking for a change of width in the right-of-way and not the change of the width of the actual pavement road surface. So starting with criteria A, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. I'd like to ask that you reference Exhibit 2, page 2 in your packet, and the slide also be shared on the screen. I don't have the picture. There we go. As you can see, the parcel itself is a peninsula. It's bounded by water on all sides. The peninsula is narrow in a small portion of the parcel and is unique in that the property line is the center of the road, and the existing road does not have its own right-of-way. As per the county roads department, the county does not have a deeded right-of-way, and it's maintained now by prescriptive easement. These conditions are extraordinary and exceptional because of the limitations created by geography and topography within this parcel. I remind the board that the way a parcel of land lays, the geography, the topography are both acceptable reasons for granting a variance. Next, B, the conditions do not generally apply to other property within the vicinity. In the geographic vicinity of this piece of property, most roads have a 50-foot right-of-way because they're not geographically constrained. This property is bounded by a body of water. Most parcels in the vicinity are not bound by water on both sides. Because of the unique geography of this parcel, meeting the current road ordinance goes beyond creating an unnecessary hardship and instead only creates impossibility of use. The impossibility creates a scenario which meets the criteria for granting a variance. Next, C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Without granting the variance to the roads ordinance, the application of the ordinance will unreasonably restrict the use of this property. Again, the property was purchased prior to the ordinance being adopted, and if you'll reference the deed restrictions for the parcel, which is found in your supplements, that did not fit in the folder, that's what's underneath. Outside of the packet, you'll see that these restrictions are designed in mind with an end use for single-family residential development, which was and still remains the intent behind the purchase. The developments in the vicinity of this property have larger home sites and larger homes. The application of this ordinance prohibits building like kind or similar developments for which the property was purchased for, as per the deed. And finally, D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. The community will be like kind to the others in the area that we have developed, such as Harbor Oaks, cottages at River Birch, and Point Harbor along the Knox Road and Ellenburg Road corridor, thus not affecting the character of the district. Granting this variance will not be a detriment to the public good as there's no further impact to the public. Given the unique peninsula geography of the parcel, granting the variance will allow access to what is essentially a dead-end road. But I think most important to address, and the reason much of the public is here tonight, is to explain the impact this has on Johns Marine. Because I have known Mr. Ratliff for many years now, I'll refer to him as Jimmy, as our community also knows him. Jimmy currently owns and operates Johns Marine Service, and as of 2016, he added the additional business of High Falls Boat Rental LLC at the same parcel, noted on Exhibit 2. Highlighted in yellow here are the 3 parcels totaling 4.94 acres that he owns. Here are the ways in which a granted variance to this ordinance would impact his property. Please reference graphics 1 through 4 in your packets located on pages 3 through 6. So you've got this quadrant, and I've got them broken down into individual slides. Number 1, the proposed improvement will relocate the existing edge of county pavement on graphic 1 to provide Johns Marine an additional 22 feet of area to maneuver outside of the county maintained roadway showed on graphics 2 and then also on graphics 3. Right now, he's paying taxes on a piece of property under county asphalt. That property will then return to him, and we will pave it if he wishes. Reference now, graphic 4. To put this space into perspective, that returns to him enough room to on average accommodate an additional 6 vehicles with boat trailers parallel to the road. Number 2, we're going to extend his current driveway to meet the new roadway so that it is then contiguous to his drive and to his ramp, causing no disturbance in his business use. But probably most helpful to improve current conditions for his operation is the installation of a cul-de-sac at the termination of the county road. I'll point to this if I can get my pointer out. There's the cul-de-sac. And that's on Exhibit 2, page 2 of your packet. This would be located 100% within the boundaries of our parcel, as you can see on Exhibit 2, and it does not encroach onto his property. Jimmy, his customer base, and the delivery truck drivers will be able to utilize this space to turn around trucks and trailered boats. I've read input from concerned citizens that the ability to turn trucks around is currently an issue for his business, as the current location and terminus of the county road creates these limitations. Jimmy is currently using the county road to turn around parts delivery trucks, according to himself and others along Ellenburg Road. Granting this variance would alleviate that current hardship by expanding the paved area and providing a cul-de-sac that is built to accommodate a circling school bus or a fire truck. This will certainly benefit him and his customers to be able to turn around here. However, Jimmy himself states in a letter to the public that, quote, 80% of his customers do arrive by water, so it may be more advantageous for the delivery truck drivers. Number 4, we're improving the affected area of an aging county road to current county specifications, an improvement to the current conditions of the roadway. This improvement is at no cost to Jimmy or the taxpayers. And number 5, finally, 19 new home sites also provides the opportunity for 19 more boats to service at the most convenient of distances. Jimmy, who already has an excellent customer base, as I think we can see in the room, and a strong reputation in our community as a top mechanic, will have a slightly expanded customer base in the community if he chooses to take on new clientele. Also, construction vehicles traveling the roadway into the development is for a limited window of time while homes are being built. I think it's important to note that no one wants Jimmy to go out of business. No one here tonight is trying to put Jimmy out of business. We've made the case of the 4 criteria for variance, and our plan to construction will improve the existing area for the operation of his businesses and not serve as a detriment to him. In closing this part of the presentation, I'd like to remind the board that the criteria for a variance exists solely within the explanation of the 4 criteria I've covered at length earlier. At the root of the matter, this parcel has significant geographical and physical constraints. The road ordinance more than creates an unnecessary hardship. The road ordinance established after the purchase of this property unreasonably restricts the use of this property. It is under these 4 criteria alone that I'm asking your consideration in granting this variance. I believe that we have firmly made a solid case for approval. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Sure.
What's the radius on that cul-de-sac that you're talking about?
Engineer, let's hear it.
It's the county standard, Wesley White, Bridgewater Engineering. It's the county standard of 40 feet.
So it is 40.
And plus 1.5 feet of curb and gutter.
Thank you.
That's plenty of room for fire trucks.
Correct.
School buses, all that kind of thing.
Correct. And it will also have its own right-of-way. It's a 50-foot radius.
Thank you. Good.
I have a question. Just
Sure.
a new piece of information you gave us here is that the county's current road ordinance, which specifies a 50-foot right-of-way, you say that came in after this property was purchased?
Correct. If you reference the deed, which was outside of the packet, the purchase, yeah, it's a lot of stuff. The purchase was in 2008. And the right-of-way, I believe, was written into code in 2014. 2013, excuse me.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions of the
Yeah,
commissioner at this
a
time?
quick question, and there's a term that has been used in describing this case, that there's a prescriptive ditch. What's a prescriptive ditch?
I'm going to let an engineer tell you that.
It's a fancy term to say that there was no right-of-way to begin with, and so the county maintains either, if there's a ditch, they maintain to the back of that ditch. If there is no ditch, then they maintain to where the shoulder stops. If there is no shoulder, which is the case in front of John's Marine, they maintain to the edge of the asphalt. So it's prescriptive, meaning as you go down it, you have to kind of determine where it is as you go.
Okay, thank you.
There have been comments concerning your plans for this property. Is it going to be marketed to homeowners in general, or is this going to be a development that is associated with vacation rentals?
At this time, we haven't even begun to write the covenants and restrictions for this property. It's a little bit too far down the road. These will be homes for sale, for certain, but I couldn't tell you much beyond that, what our plans
Okay,
are.
that's fair. Just an item of information.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Staff, any comments, please?
So this is a road variance and not necessarily a zoning variance. We have met with the Roads and Bridges Department. They have done some initial conversations that did not involve the sketch. They have been provided the sketch since then. Some of the things that I would note in the conversation, they agree that the current road right-of-way is prescriptive and ends at the end of the pavement on either side of the road currently. The right-of-way request for this section they're talking about is approximately 100 foot in length in totality. And then the right-of-way varies from the 50 foot to, at the narrowest, is the 31.9 feet. But it is not angular and it's not 31 the entire way, so that was wanted to be pointed out as well, that it is a rhombus shape, so it has. And the final thing was that it is sketching, their sketch does show that they are shifting it to be all on their property, so they're taking it out of the center line where it was on the property line, so the center line of the road was the center of the property.
It's the
They're shifting.
developer's property line.
Correct.
Between them and John's Marine.
Marine.
The property line runs down the center of the road currently. You're going to shift now
South.
to south, that's,
Yes.
okay.
The other thing that just we would note is that the, granting this variance did not immediately allow for construction. So they would still have to go through Roads and Bridges for additional, they'd have to prove that they can place road shoulders, all the appropriate drainage, all the utilities in a narrowed right-of-way. They will have to perform a traffic study still. And they will also need to get approvals for access and turning radiuses from the emergency management staff. So there are still several more steps before they can do a plan development as well.
Okay. But other than those, we don't know of any, help me understand why the county requires a 50-foot right-of-way. Road is like 25 feet wide?
This would be a minor road, so it would be between 10-foot lanes and 11-foot lanes, so between
Okay.
20 and 22 to back to pavement, plus the shoulder would typically be 3 feet on either side. If there's ditches, that obviously would depend on the front slip and the back slip of the ditch and the bottom, but anywhere between, 3 feet to 10 feet, depending on the size of the ditch. Or if it's piped, obviously that could be narrower.
So coming down to a minimum of 30.9 feet, I think it is.
Yes.
That does not restrict the county's ability to properly use that right-of-way. It's just narrower.
So a 31.9-foot right-of-way does not impact their ability to maintain the road. They've made no statement as to safety. So that is for road maintenance. Right now, they are maintaining with zero right-of-way on the side of the road.
Okay. Okay. Is anyone clear on all that? What questions we're asking? Okay. Pardon me while I get my act together here. Okay, we'll now open this up to citizen comment. Like I said, please be brief. I want everyone to have a chance to say something. Please be brief. Please don't reiterate what other people have said, but if you really feel you need to say something, please do. I'd like you to hold it to 3 minutes. Hold your comments to 3 minutes. Now, there's a lot of interest here. Address your comments to us only. Do not talk to the developer or anyone else in the audience. Please address your comments to us only. Same goes for the developer later on. If you hear something you want to say, please say it to us. Don't say it to anyone in the audience. Any questions on the rules? Yeah, are you first on the list? Is that is that?
No, I'm going to be the spokesperson for the group to articulate the opposition to it.
Okay, fine. Just let me get my list out here. I have a list here we are. So are you Mike Johnson?
No, my name is Rick McDuff. I'm an attorney at law here in Seneca.
Okay.
And I represent the Ratliff family and Johns Marine.
Okay, it's Rick?
McDuff, McDuff.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you for entertaining me. Am I limited also to the 3 minutes, or may I have a little bit more time?
No, if you're going to represent their interests, you can have
A reasonable period
amount of time.
All right, thank you.
More than what the developer took.
I appreciate it. I will try to not take 2 hours to watch 60 minutes.
Thank you.
So, good evening. Thank you for taking your time to listen to us tonight. Let me start by saying is that neither Jimmy Ratliff nor the Ratliff family has any opposition to reasonable development of the Arrowhead property. What they have an issue with is the reconfiguration of a roadway that, and I think we need to talk about I think the significant legal issues that will end up arising from this that I think only a court of law can determine. Is number one, I think it's beyond dispute, is that the existing portion of the roadway involved in this is not on any property owned by any governmental entity, including Oconee County. The roadway, the paved portion of the road currently exists more or less half on property owned by the Ratliffs and half on property owned by the developer, with the approximate center point, actually more of the center line, more of the property of the paved portion is on Ratliff property by some slight margin than on the developer's property. And if you can see, and I don't have access to the developer's notebook, and I don't have the order in which they've provided documents, but I've been provided, which was a handout to everybody here, this aerial map, this aerial photograph showing the area in question with the proposed roadway and this yellow boundary line around what they say is Johns Marine and High Falls Boat Road. I appreciate it. Thank you. First of all, I would just want to point out that all of these parcels in here are not owned by common owners. So we have a divergence of owners. They maybe have some Ratliff owner components to them. The area in question that's going to be most greatly impacted by this roadway modification or proposed roadway modification is this parcel, which would be on the right, toward the right side of the yellow line. That is where the Johns Marine facility is located. That's where Jimmy Ratliff's marine repair shop is located and his dock facilities. As you can see also by this graphic is that the current roadway runs directly in front in basically a west to east orientation in front of Johns Marine. The proposed reconfiguration of the roadway takes that road and makes a sort of a dogleg right in it before it enters the Arrowhead development. Now, what's interesting from and significant from a legal standpoint is that, like I said, none of the property in question here is owned by the county. So they talk about a prescriptive right-of-way over this parcel of property, and probably for a good number of feet, maybe 1,000 feet beyond that, is all privately owned to the center line of the roadway as well. The county maintenance sign used to end where it's an end of county maintenance, probably 400 or 500 feet to what would be to the west of where this roadway in question is.
Can you get a clicker and kind of point what your points you're making on that map?
All right, let me see if I can. All right, there's Johns Marine.
Blow that up just a little bit. Is that possible?
Let me see if I can.
He's talking about, because we're not really talking about any of it. Just that, can't get it, can't blow it up. No, I don't have a monitor. I haven't been here long enough.
See, I think if you go back to the original.
Yeah, no, I mean, that map.
This map right here?
Yeah.
Okay, what's going on there?
Here is the current, this is this is the current roadway right here.
They got it.
Right, Ellenberg, this is Ellenberg Road. You can see the center line of the, with this dark line right here
Okay.
is the property boundary. And you can see the majority of the roadway, at least up to this point, exists on Ratliff property. This is the shop, this is a driveway to Jan Ratliff's private residence. And this right here is, you can see it, beyond this over here is where the road striping ends. There's a double yellow line in the middle, and there used to be back around here a end of county maintenance sign, and that sign has now been removed. At some point in time, somebody moved it up closer to here. It's been moved altogether when it was previously in about this location over here. So none of this area in here is owned or controlled by Oconee County or anybody else. It's all private roadway. And I'll submit to you that there's probably, if you went and looked at the roadway, it would be evidence that somebody abandoned this area a long time ago. It's in poorly maintained condition. The asphalt is irregular, and the last of the maintenance is up here where the double yellow line ends, where the pavement is more even. In any event, we use this term loosely about a prescriptive easement. And a prescriptive easement is a very, very, it's a very precise, it has very precise meaning in the law. And that is an implied easement through continual use, but a prescriptive easement is only established through judicial process. Nobody can say I've got a prescriptive easement over somebody else's property without a court determining you have a prescriptive easement. It doesn't happen because somebody says so. It happens because a court hears evidence and determines that there's a prescriptive easement. Now, there's no evidence in this case that in this matter, this application, that the county has sought or obtained or proven a prescriptive easement in any court of law over this portion of property. The other issue here, the other significant legal issue, this is rather unique. When you have, let's assume for the sake of argument, you have an easement that exists over some portion of this roadway that the county has a right to maintain and create, improve, do whatever they want to with the roadway, which is not, let's assume for the sake of argument there is an easement. Now, one of the unique things in the law about an easement is that easements require a relationship between two parties. And when an easement exists on somebody else's property, you're the owner of the dirt, you're called the servient tenement. And the owner of that, the holder of that easement, the person or the entity that has the right to use your property is called the dominant tenement. And so in this case, the Ratliff property would be the servient tenement if an easement exists, and the county would be the holder of the dominant tenement. What's unique about this is there's an application to alter the contours of an easement, assuming for the sake of argument there is an easement, by somebody who's not the holder of the easement. The holder of the easement it would be the county. It wouldn't be the adjoining property owner. That is the developer who owns that boundary line to the south of that center line and the property to the east of it, which is called Arrowhead Point. Now, what the law requires, if you're going to modify or change or alter the contours of an easement, it requires the consent of all parties to it. One party cannot do it by its own desire. It can't be done by fiat. It has to be done by agreement of the parties. And so that we don't have here. We don't have that agreement. We have an application by a developer who owns a portion of the south of it and to the east, but we don't have the consensus of all the parties to this easement. Yes, part of this easement, if one exists, is on property owned by the developer, but only a portion of it. The rest of it is on property owned by the Ratliff family. So we have an issue, a legal issue that is really a roadblock to modifying, altering, or changing this easement by altering the path or deviating from the course of this roadway and changing the contours of the easement. And they still want to maintain a portion of the road right-of-way and change the contours of that over onto the Ratliff property, ostensibly for the purpose of installing and maintaining utilities across the Ratliff property, which would be something that would be legally prohibited without the consent of the Ratliffs. Now, one of the other issues of significant concern is the negative impact this would have on Johns Marine in particular. It may have a lesser impact on the mother's property, Jan Ratliff's property. Her driveway may have to be extended to join the new roadway. But we heard for the first time tonight that what they're going to do is, if you see on here, and if you can go back to that aerial, actually I'll use this, is if we, let me get the arrow. See this right here? This is the Johns Marine shop. I don't know if any of you have used Johns Marine, brought your boats there, and there are docks out here on the lake, and here's the shop, and here's the parking area out front. It's really a concrete slab. That concrete slab is wholly within the confines of Ratliff property. And you can see here being bounded on the south side by the road, by this black line in the center line of the road. Now, if this roadway is reconfigured to cause a deviation from the existing roadway, what that happens, what that causes is the Ratliff, the Johns Marine, to all of a sudden become landlocked or with no access to any kind of roadway to do business. It effectively shuts them down. We heard from the developer, they don't want that to happen, and they're willing to extend this concrete pad out to meet the roadway. But what we haven't heard is that how that's going to happen from a legal standpoint. How is that going to occur? Because in order to extend that concrete pad to meet what's now the proposed new roadway, which is going to be wholly on the developer's property as a result of this modification of this alleged easement, is that in order to do that, the concrete pad and access is going to have to be on property owned by the developer. So, in other words, there's going to be, who's going to own it, have the right to it? We haven't heard it offered that there's going to be an easement granted, any kind of express easement to cross that for customers to use it in order to access the business. We haven't heard anything about an offer to transfer ownership of a portion of the title to the property, the fee interest of the property, in order to join the new proposed road right-of-way or the paved portion of the road. Otherwise, without that legal right, without some sort of identifiable, recordable legal interest in that property, it's a bare promise to say that the Ratliff business, the Johns Marine, will have the right to access and do business. Otherwise, without that access, that business gets shut down. There is no other means of access for customers to come in there with boats, trailered vehicles and trailered boats, and also delivery vehicles. So that is something that's been wholly absent in this conversation tonight. So we think that because of the legal obstacles that this body has, is that you're being asked to do something unique. And what you're really, unfortunately, being asked to do is put the ball on the tee for a lawsuit. Because you're being asked to change an easement to which all the parties are not in agreement. Being asked to alter a roadway which is on Ratliff property and developer property without getting the consent of the other party, the Ratliffs, to this. And also, there's been no demonstration how this is not going to have a negative impact on a business that's been there for 39 years. This business predated the purchase of the property by the developer by a long shot. And this business has been there, it's a fixture on the lake, and in fact, there is no other, if this, and under Duke's shoreline management plan, it's only this parcel of property that's identified as used for commercial use in this area. The rest of it is all residential. There's no other place to move it. So if this business is, the ability to do businesses here is hampered, which they've done now for 3 generations, this family, is there's no other place to put it. Duke Energy will never grant another community or multiple dock permit, will not grant the use to put a marina or any other marine repair facility anywhere else on the lake. It isn't going to happen. So we believe firmly that the developer cannot demonstrate at least element D of this. In addition to the fact that we think that there are other deficiencies in some of the documents that have been submitted to you. For instance, if you look at the topographical drawing of the engineer that has the contour lines, where everything below the 804 line is supposed to be sacred under Duke Energy shoreline management guidelines. And you look at the conflict with that and the recently added survey of Pioneer Land Surveying that shows a different 804 contour line, you'll find that if I'm reading it right, if I'm reading the engineer's topographic survey, which I think is document number 1 on your documents which are available online, is that a lot of this roadway is going to be below that 804 line. And what's going to happen there, the way they're going to pitch the property, it's going to create what we call a bird bath. And it's going to create, instead of water taking a natural flow off of that road from the east to the west, actually the northwest to, or northwest to the east, what it's going to do is going to cause a big bird bath in the middle of that road. The property is going to drain toward the Ratliff property. You can already see it when you go there because they've done fill work and they've done grading work on that roadway already, which has already created a deviation in the contour of that roadway, which is now going to cause water to pool either in front of that shop, in that shop, or cause flooding in that shop. And if you look at the contour lines, you'll find most of that roadway that they're asking to put in, I think is going to be around the 802 line. And if I'm reading the engineer's drawings correctly. So I'd ask you to take a look at the Exhibit 1, which is online, which I pulled, and compare that to the Pioneer Land Surveying plat of survey, which was added today. And I think you'll see some inconsistencies between those two documents that raise questions. But I think the biggest questions are the legal ones that cannot be solved by this body. I think that those can only be solved by either order of a court or agreement of the parties, which we don't have tonight. So for those reasons, we're asking you to deny this request, this application for a variance. The negative impact on the business, John's Marine, a fixture on the lake, is going to be significant. We don't have any guarantees of access to it. All we have is a map that shows that there's no longer road access to the property. And for those reasons, we ask that you deny the application and let them do something different. There's a way to put a private drive in there. They may not get the density development they want, but they can put a one-lane drive all on their property. But this is negatively impacting the Ratliff property and changing the contours, the easement on their property to which they have not agreed.
I have questions, please, sir.
Yes, sir.
Number one, I could really correct you. Duke's 804-foot line is, they own to the 804-foot line. Duke does on this property.
Correct.
They own it. They don't necessarily place restrictions on all 800, everything up to the 804. They place restrictions on the first 25 feet. That's their buffer. It's the same.
Be the same thing here.
Same thing as the county. Duke owns to the 804.
Duke owns to the 804, but the problem is some of this property, you'll see, according to the engineer drawing, is between the boundary lines is below the 804 line.
We'll ask that later. We'll try to figure that out. Anyone have any other questions?
I have a question. Have you had any discussions with the developer at all about these issues that you're bringing up tonight?
I have not, and Mr. Brandt, their counsel, and I know each other very well, and we will have discussions with one another. I think the developer has had conversations with Jimmy Ratliff from time to time. I have not been a party to those.
So there is a willingness to discuss between the two parties?
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you this is, I've been doing this for 35 years, and there's never an unwillingness to have a discussion. So, that was a lawyer answer. How about
Glad
that?
to talk. If we could assume for a moment that the roadway is changed as proposed, and that the added 22 feet connects the existing ramp into his business with the roadway. How would that, if you're allowed, and you're somehow figure out to have access to the roadway, you're not prevented by legal constraints, how is that going to negatively impact Jimmy's business?
Well, I think it now it becomes, let's assume all those things, we get some sort of guaranteed right of access, they extend this by 22 feet, and the developer talked about having a new and different and additional clientele. These are very, very narrow roads to begin with. I think if you look at the drawings, I think one lane at the narrowest point is maybe 10 feet and the other's 11 feet. And I think you have significant safety issues. If you're bringing in delivery vehicles and you're bringing in trailer boats, and you're trying to dodge cars coming in and out of this development. I think they're seeking to put 19 homes in. We haven't heard whether or not they're going to allow short-term rentals, so there may be higher density use than that on very, very narrow roadways. And then I submit to you, too, that it would be virtually impossible if you had an emergency back there to get more than one emergency fire truck or anything else back in there without great difficulty. I think it becomes a significant safety issue to the users of that facility, the operation of that business, and the persons traveling on that roadway.
So what I hear you saying is you need the roadway to run your business.
The road, yes,
The business needs to be on the roadway to run the business.
that absolutely, otherwise it's shut down. But I know that we've heard the offer for the first time that they'll extend it to the edge of the roadway, but that's going to have to cross the developer's property, and there's been no offer of transfer of ownership.
I understand there's legal issues there.
Legal issues.
But I'm trying to understand, is Jimmy pulls a boat out of the water. He's pulled my boat out of the water on occasion. Pulls it up and has to back it into his repair facility. How is this change going to impair that? Assuming he's got access to the road and everything, how is this going to impact that?
Well, if I may do this, if I'm with your indulgence, I would, because Jimmy operates the facility, and Jay. And so Jay or Jimmy, do you want to address that?
So, I'm gonna take over.
Please do.
Give you a little more detail that Mr. McDuff might not have.
And
Jimmy's.
Jimmy?
Sorry, I'm Edward John Ratliff Jr., also known as Jay Ratliff, Jimmy's older brother.
Jimmy's older, so this is Jimmy here. That's right.
This is Jimmy.
I met with Jimmy before.
So Jimmy's handing out a letter that he addressed to the chairman. And I'm not going to read all this to you. I'm going to summarize a few points. I think that may answer some of the questions that the board may have, and then we'll open it up for any other questions beyond that. But first of all, we, the family, are not opposed to the developer having access to their property. We are opposed to a 19-home development that will have a crippling detrimental impact to Jimmy's business and John's Marine. I think if you've been down there before, you would understand that. If you haven't, I would encourage you to take a trip down Ellenberg Road and see the end of county maintenance that we talked about, where the yellow line ends, and then go all the way to the end to see where the backfill activities did occur. And then you'll see how narrow it is and how crippling it would be to Jimmy's business. If you have owned a boat and backed a boat before, then you know how difficult it is and how wide of a swing that you do need. And Jimmy has used full access of all of that property from 585 Ellenberg Road, which is the next adjacent piece up the road, which now Jimmy does own, but it's Jimmy's property himself. It's not part of John's Marine. But that is where end of county maintenance has ended, and all the way down till Arrowhead Point has been maintained by the Ratliff family, and that's been for almost 40 years. The business was started in 1972, so next year will be the 50th anniversary of John's Marine. So we're going to have a big party. I encourage you to come. 1982 is when John Ratliff built the shop in its current location, and he's been operating it there ever since with no challenges and no issues. Jimmy's son, Cameron Ratliff, who is here tonight, is learning the business and wants to take over and operate. So he is now being a mentored under Jimmy to run the shop. The business is the livelihood for Jimmy and his family, and has been for a long time. The 31.9-foot bottleneck will have an impact to the repair shop. Vehicles coming in and out. The large number of vehicles, emergency vehicles and all of that, will impact Jimmy's ability to not only park boats, but back boats into the shop and pull boats out of the water on his ramp. There are a couple of things I want to address specifically with the variance questions. I think that's important because that's what the board is looking at. So I'll just say in order of questions 1 through 4, there are 2 questions in particular that I think the board should consider. And the 4th one is, will the proposed variance result in an activity that will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent uses or to the good of the public. And I say it will have a detrimental impact to Johns Marine and to the good of the public as well, as all the fine folks you've seen here who Jimmy services and has been for a long time. There was an incident, one case where Jimmy was lake testing a boat, and he was over near High Falls. He was waved down by a family who was in distress. He went over there to help, dove into the water. Someone had drowned, and Jimmy spent several times diving to the bottom looking for the individual. Pulled him out, pulled him to the surface, and he was awarded a commendation or recognition by Oconee County Council, and that's in the letter, so you can reference that and see that. So I think it's important to recognize that Jimmy provides a substantial service to the community and the surrounding public, and how it would be impacted by putting these 19 homes next to his business. The second question I want to address is question number 2 in the package, and that's, are the circumstances affecting the subject property the result of actions by the applicant or owner? So I'm not as clear on the answer to this question. I will say there is some suspicious activity that has taken place. Mr. McDuff described it briefly about activity between the 800, 804, 810. Those are all lines that lake property owners are familiar with if you've ever dealt with Duke Energy. So the purchased property was I'll just talk briefly over here, it'll probably help. So on this map, you can see this is the area of discussion or interest, and the property was modified in this area that created the 31.9 foot area here with the backfill activities. There are inconsistencies in the surveys, 804, 802, 800, where's the FERC boundary and all that stuff. Personally, I'm not a survey engineer, but reading the documents that were provided to the board, I can see inconsistencies myself in there, which make me question how all of that was created and put together. There is one survey that's in the package by Pioneer Engineering. It's dated August 26, 2021. That survey was conducted after the backfill activities, which the family identified or first noticed July 31st of 2021. And so we did identify that there were activities happening. We approached the folks that were conducting the backfill activities, questioned what was the purpose of the fill. We were not giving any responses, and we were not notified that activities would be taking place on the property. As I said in the beginning, we're not trying to prevent the developer from having access to his property. The Harbor Oaks, which is the next adjacent community, which was mentioned by the applicant, we fully supported that community as described. It was more customer based for Jimmy. It was up the street, which did not have a detrimental impact to his business by preventing him from being able to maneuver or service boats. So those are some of the points I wanted to point out. There's more information in the letter that you can read at your pleasure, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Can I ask a
Yes,
question,
sir.
please? Looking at your packet here that you sent us, that you gave us, it looks like an older picture, black and white picture.
Oh, yeah, I didn't address the pictures. Thanks for that. Yeah.
And it appears to be a gravel road, so at some point, was it just gravel all the way down to the shop?
So the history goes back to before Lake Kiwi was built. It was Route 1, Box 268. That was Mom's address. And the road went all the way across, and it was a tar and gravel road, so an old design road. And then right at Johns Marine, there was a split, and there was a dirt road that went across the lake over towards High Falls. And so that road no longer exists. Route 1 went along the edge of the shoreline here, came down this way, went along here, and then went out. Now that portion of the lake is still flooded. You can still see the tar and gravel under the water, and it's there. the end of county maintenance stopped when, about 40 years ago, when Dad started building the shop, they stopped paving the road up here. So everything from here down was maintained by the Ratliff family.
So that was my question. So the area, because it's not, obviously not a gravel road now, it is paved, so y'all paved that road.
That's right.
Oconee County did not pave that road.
That's
at any
correct.
point.
So, that's correct.
Thank you.
And you can, if you go out there, you can see where the tar and gravel ends. You can see where the pavement has changed over the years. And then in this particular photograph here, you can see where the yellow lines end, and that where the.
And y'all paid up to that.
That's correct. Not every time the county's paved, right? So I think someone mentioned that the road is kind of in disarray, so we haven't kept up with it as much as the county paves. Yeah.
Right, my point is, so if you did that privately, y'all paved it privately, the county never has paved that road. Because I would hope to goodness that if the county did not have an easement for that road, that we didn't waste taxpayer money paving the road. That's what I was getting.
I can assure you, taxpayer money was not wasted paving that road. There is one more piece with the road. It was originally at some point a state road when it was Route 1, Box 268. So it was a state road at some point, and then I guess the state of South Carolina went through trying to transition all the roads to local governments, and then that's when it became a county road. And that's when it transitioned from tar and gravel to asphalt. So there was more funds, I guess, to be able to pave the road, so.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
The presentations that have been done tonight have been very articulate and very understanding. But the thing that I'm struggling with is that it's clear that you say that you want the subdivision to go ahead and have a sub and give them access to that subdivision. They say that they want Jimmy's to be, John Marine to continue to do well and to prosper and to not do anything that would inhibit their business. So it seems like the thing that's stopping this is, what is it that can be done to John's Marine that would make this whole process work?
Yeah, I agree,
It
and that's.
just seems so, I mean, we're listening to these things like a ping pong ball, game, back and forth, but yet there's no, it seems like the fundamental issue is what needs to be done to make both sides happy. Let's do it.
I agree, and the challenge with that is all of the governmental entities that would need to approve the changes to be able to make that work. The county being one, Duke Energy being one, potentially FERC being one, as FERC is the one who approved the shoreline management plan for Lake Kiwi and where commercial marinas can currently exist. So right now, the FERC requirements say that the only commercial marina in the center of the lake can be in this location at John's Marine. Right, and you can look at that on the map. It's if you bring up the satellite image that we had. Right here. So commercial marina to here, and then it stops. So the remainder of this, which is Jimmy's property, which I'm not part owner in, cannot have a commercial marina. So it can't exist there. Not unless Duke amends the shoreline management plan and gets that approved by FERC. So that's the challenge there. And Mr. McDuff's the legal guy. I'm just the.
And I'm gonna, if I may add to your question, I think again, and I don't want to minimize the authority of this body. But I think what the developer is asking this body to do is to do something it does not have the legal ability to do, because this is an area of private property, and I think this can only be achieved through private agreement, if anything, not through government action. Because if you look where the county road ended and what the Ratliffs did and the county's involvement with this roadway, this is all private property, and so an alteration of this roadway can't be affected by any kind of ruling from this body.
I saw one.
Okay.
That was my question is, if the county doesn't maintain it all, how can the county,
Have any authority?
have any authority?
We'll ask staff to answer that in a second here.
Okay.
If I could just go back to kind of the day-to-day operation. I pull in with my boat, go up on Jimmy's trailer, and he pulls my boat up to back it in. It sounds to me like if they extend the road to the south, that gives Jimmy more room to pull up and back in. It really enhances his ability to handle boats from the water. Aside from the crowd, I understand crowding is an issue, but aside from that, sounds like it doesn't impact the ability of my boat to get service
Yeah,
from the
so
water.
you bring up a great point for us to have conversations that are irrelevant to the board. And I think that's a good conversation to have. I'm surprised that we've made it to this point and haven't had open conversations. And I'm also surprised that there were documents that were presented at the 11th hour that had changes and suggestions to things that are offered to the family that no family member has been privy to. And so that just kind of puts red flags up for me personally. I don't know how the remainder of the board feels. And one last point is the developer doesn't need the variance to be able to develop the property. I think that's important.
Let me ask the question, because I thought you said at the beginning, you're okay with development of fewer home sites, not the 19.
That's right.
You're okay with the 3 or 4, you're not okay with the 19.
That's correct.
As I understand it, that speaks to county regulations. Up to, was it 3 or 4 home sites, all you need is a driveway, there's a single lane, and you got plenty of room to do a single lane there.
Private road, there's
Private
plenty
road,
of room.
Private road, whatever the terminology is. Anything over that, you have to have a full-fledged access road. Okay. At this point, let me ask staff, what about this legal issue of, does the county have the right to specify this road, to allow this road?
Well, I am not an attorney.
Okay, I understand. We aren't either. So all this legal stuff, I don't think we're going to address, but
What I would say is I've interacted with enough attorneys to know that I should not say anything.
Are we that bad?
I have been deposed enough times to know that I shouldn't say anything.
That's fine. I just, that's fine.
And obviously, I'm not the final authority with the laws. That's a judge with a robe on. I don't wear a robe. But I'm just, Mr. Chairman, I think that, I just want to, maybe I'm beating a dead horse, is that I think what the developer is asking you to do is something that, in concept, you may be having an argument that if they extend this pad 22 feet or whatever, I don't know whether it'll provide greater accessibility. But the problem is that this is private property owned by private parties and a private paved roadway. I just don't think we have any jurisdiction to be able to entertain this.
Hear what you're saying. Okay, do you folks have anything more? You presented a good detailed presentation of why you're against the proposal.
Yeah, we have.
We've got a lot of other folks to hear from on what the impact might be on the neighborhood.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, at this time, find my list. Other comments from the public, please. First on the list is Mike Johnson.
I'm impressed with the size of groups that you all are able to get. We are not able to get nearly that
Planning
kind of
Commission is
group in our-
just irrelevant, that's all it is.
Good evening, board members. My name is Mike Johnson. I'm a planning commissioner for Oconee County. While I'm not here to speak on behalf of the planning commission nor for Oconee County, I do bring experience with regard to public interest, private property rights, and a discussion on these ordinances. I'm often reminded, especially, that it's my responsibility as a planning commissioner to rise above the noise and make sure that I'm looking at the issues and not the opinions to make sure everyone's rights are equally protected. Tonight, we're talking about, and what I thought this BZA hearing was about a right-of-way easement that's not the 50 feet that is required by the county to fit into this gap to get open. I didn't think anything else was of issue tonight, but many of the residents are completely unaware that Oconee County has clear definitions for driveways, drives, and roadways. Many residents are shocked to hear that their drive, if it services more than 3 homes under today's ordinances, they will be required to have a drivable surface that's 20 foot wide, built of a certain depth of material, and the county requires a 50-foot right-of-way for access. Now, many of us know there are a lot of small lots and small roads out there with 4 or more homes that don't have a 20-foot wide surface. But people would probably be shocked to know that many of the lakefront subdivisions, while having a 20-foot wide road, have significantly less than this 50-foot wide right-of-way that's required. Kiwi Key, Harbor Oaks, Waterside Crossing, Waterford, Waterford Point, The Summit, Beacon Shores. I could go on and on, that all have roads that would not be able to be built today under the 50-foot right-of-way standard. Waterford Community, for example, has 39 lots accessible by roads with a 30-foot wide easement. Waterside Crossing and Waterford Point each have 17 lots accessible only by a private road. They would be standing in front of you today saying, we need relief from this 50-foot wide easement. Kiwi Key, with its many topography changes, wouldn't exist in the way it looks today if they had to follow the current 50-foot wide easement for these 20-foot wide roads. See, back in the day, there was no such thing as a 50-foot wide easement for private roads. So these subdivisions could go, oh, well, if we can't adhere to the 50-foot public, we'll just call it private and move forward. But private road ordinance changed in 2013. You can go on the Oconee County website under Roads and Bridges, and you can see the ordinance highlighted with changes. Signed by council on July 16th, 2013. It says the ordinance amends Chapter 26, Section 26-2 under private road standards. And then it highlights these changes. The ordinance appears to bring private roads up to match public road right-of-ways, that 50-foot. So any conversation about a developer should have known or should have been there during the time of purchase probably just isn't true. But now I wasn't on the Planning Commission at the time, but it appears from the county website that this creating of private drives and road ordinance, that the county predecessors seem to do a copy-paste mechanism to make the private roads have the same or very similar rules as the public roads. So it's actually my belief if the road ordinance was under consideration today, someone would be calling it a private land grab of private property, taking and making private residents have this 50-foot wide width. But since this right-of-way now applies to all roads with over 3 homes that it services, the relief of this ordinance should be considered. And as my understanding, they're standing here today talking about this 50-foot wide point that they only have 30 some odd feet to go through. They're still doing the 20-foot wide road. And my understanding is that's what this ruling is on tonight, not many of these other things that I think are very valid from both parties that need to be discussed. And it sounds like that both parties are very willing to discuss them. But the 50-foot wide easement is for private roads, and before that ordinance was put in place, developers, when they were accessing for these lakefront subdivisions that have points and peninsulas, they would simply have to go, oh, it's a private road, doesn't have to fall under county rules of the public road right-of-ways. Now everything does if it's more than 3 homes. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Maggie Johnson.
We're the dynamic duo tonight. Good evening. My name is Maggie Johnson, and I came to you today as a neighbor and property owner on Knox Road near Johns Marine. My personal home is also very near to Jimmy and Lucretia's personal home. I have and will continue to support his business both at Johns Marine and whatever businesses may come in the future. My support of his small business has been longstanding. He's cared for my own personal boats, and I've referred every single person that's wanted marine service in the last 10 years to Jimmy, without exception. I support his small business the same way we all do. We invest in the business. We pay for them happily. We're grateful. Jimmy's business is not going to suffer in any way, but will rather benefit from this newest edition of Lake Huey Homes and the improvements of his property. I would like to make clear that not everyone in the area is against this latest development, nor its location or access. While I'm not a paved paradise and put up a parking lot proponent, that's not what's happening here. Yes, there are many quality residential lakefront developments in our area, and if you live in one, I beg you to remember the gratitude you must have felt to become a part of this community. I know our family has loved establishing our community around this county for the last 10 years. I'm a South Carolina native, but much of our family has come from North Carolina and Texas, and I've been thrilled to welcome them to the closest thing to paradise I've ever known. I'm sure you've all experienced people wanting to follow you here. I am disappointed by the members of our community who have decided that now that they have their own slice of paradise, no one else can have any. I would like to make clear that it is not our decision as residents of this county to police how many people move to Lake Huey. I get it. We have more lake traffic than ever before. My personal lakefront property is in a highly frequented cove, and during boating season, it's not unusual to have a dozen boats sitting in the cove and on the beach. Do I run them off, jump on Facebook to vent or complain, or lobby in some way for their removal? Absolutely not. In fact, on busy lake days, I like to walk down to the water and welcome them to the area. I've made friends that way, and most people are respectful and friendly and just so grateful to have an opportunity to enjoy this beautiful place. Who am I to take that from them? I'd like to suggest that perhaps one day you too would enjoy welcoming a few more grateful friends and family members to our beautiful area. I support the developers' inalienable right to develop this piece of property, as was always their intention, and I do not believe an adjacent property owner has a right to infringe upon those inherent rights. Let me give a related example. Jimmy has a lot of property in the area. He has an expansive personal portfolio of property, several parcels of which adjoin my personal property. He has suggested it's his intention to build a commercial storage building complex and a commercial boat dealership at the corner of Evett and Knox Road. Happens to be where my driveway is too, and that's okay. He owns the property. That would combine his combination home and boat storage lot, plus the additional 2 businesses, into something of a commercial plaza right there on Knox Road. If traffic is our issue here, let's consider what that might mean for traffic patterns for all of the communities accessed down Knox and Ellenburg Road. While I may not love these commercial ideas as a resident, I would never deny him his rights to use his property and develop it as he is permitted. In fact, if he were being challenged right now, I'd be up here supporting him. I am also not blaming him for the impact that those businesses might have on my enjoyment of my property. Those are his rights, and they should be defended. The developer involved here has the same right to pursue their intended use for their investment. I also live adjacent to another newer development where homes are under construction. Yes, the sounds of traffic of construction are present during this phase. Almost done. I promise I'll be quick. I've never once thought I'd have to complain about our local businesses and residents. I'm surprised and disappointed at those who only see one person's side. One more thing. Johns Marine is a very successful business, thanks in no small part to the residents of the many developments on Lake Huey and in this room. This situation is obviously personal to me, and I've been terribly disappointed in all the recent noisy chatter in our community. I'm saddened by the friendships altered and the misinformation running rampant throughout our beautiful area. I ask you to rise above the chatter to make a sound and reasonable decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Edward Ratliff.
That was me, I'm sorry.
Oh, so you've had your chance. Mr. McDuff, you've had your chance.
I can say more if you want.
We'll pass on that at this moment, thank you. Sherry Crisp.
I'm gonna pass.
Gonna pass?
Yes.
This is your chance.
That's all right.
Gary Cold-Son.
That's me, but I'm gonna surrender my time.
You sure now? Want everyone to have a chance to say something? Yes, sir. Chad Knott.
My name is Chad Knott. My wife and I own 555 Ellenberg Road, and we also own 2 other properties on Lake Kiwi and a fourth property in Oconee County. And very thankful that you guys are here, able to hear a lot of folks speak over this issue. Obviously, I'm familiar with this property. I've had a boat run out of gas at some point in time, and I trespassed on the property to go back to my house and get some gas and fill my boat back up. What I'd like to talk about is really what does it look like in the context of these 4 prongs that we've just been talking about. Is the property peculiar? Do the conditions apply to another property? How does it impact their utilization? And 4, does it harm other property owners? Now, there's been a lot of conversation over the issue of the road right-of-way, whether regulations were in place back in 2008 when they acquired the property. But I would like you to take a look at the plat that they acquired the property under, just so you can get a good visualization of what it looks like when they bought the property. And then I want you to consider the thought of developing the subdivision based on that shape and configuration. Miss, yes.
When you're done, if we can, or you can use it while you're talking, but we just need a copy for the record.
I may have another one.
Okay.
Yep. So I think what is a good question that Mr. McDuff brings up is the whole issue of the right-of-way itself. That where is county maintenance, right? Where does the county maintenance end? And if the county does not have a prescriptive right to the end of Ellenberg, then where does it end? And if the county does not have a prescriptive right, then who owns the property? Who has the right to grant the access? So what I'd like to do for a moment, if I can look here and draw your attention to this sketch. This white line attempts to identify what we believe to be the prescriptive rights of Ellenberg Road, and then perhaps a new road that's coming in based on the development of subdivision. Let's assume that Oconee County has the prescriptive right to the existing asphalt, right? We've seen the developer say, hey, Mr. Ratliff, Mr. Jimmy, we will give you the property. We will let you expand down to our property line and where the new road's going to be. There is a critical legal issue there that if, in fact, Oconee County has a prescriptive right, then Oconee County must go through the abandonment process in order for the title and the ownership and control of that area to even be given to Mr. Jimmy. The developer doesn't have that power, and frankly, Jimmy doesn't have that power. So there's a significant question of who has the right to help Mr. Jimmy in his management of his marine service. If Oconee County does not have a prescriptive right, then the Ratliff family is who owns the dirt. And the Ratliff family is who can provide legal access to this end track, the Arrowhead track, right? If Oconee County has a prescriptive easement, then the developer does not have the right to give the property to Jimmy to aid in his business. That's a critical issue that must be addressed. Secondly, if we look at the way the Oconee County prescriptive easement is, if we assume that they have an easement, let's look at the traffic flow. What is it like for a car to be traveling east on Ellenberg Road and then trying to contemplate if, in fact, Oconee Avenue, I keep saying Oconee Avenue, that's another subdivision, Oconee County has a prescriptive right for this area, then they have a prescriptive right and a requirement and a liability to the county to maintain that road. Then if they have to maintain this road, and this road is here as a new private road, what does it look like a car coming down the road? How do they figure out where to go? Do they just run into the end of this road and crash? Or do they take and try to curve and understand where they have to head to get into the subdivision? Perhaps it will be something that can be discovered down the road, but I think it's a real issue of how do you address traffic in such an unusual situation. The right-of-way issues of 50 foot versus 31 foot, I mean, if you really thought about the percentages, it's almost a 56.7% reduction in what they're asking for. Pretty absurd reduction, in my opinion. When we get to the issue of does it impede their property right? No. They can obviously build on the property. We have learned that they can build 3 or 4 houses and they don't need the road. So the issue of utilization of the property is not impeded by you denying the variance. This is another unique situation with the property that I think Oconee County must take into consideration. We've seen several different drawings We've seen sketches from the engineers. I hope I got enough for these of this for y'all as well. We talked about elevations, right? We've seen and understand that the property may include property that's very close to the 804 line. It may or may not be above 804. I got one right. Got lucky. If y'all were to look at the deed into their ownership of the property from 2008, you'll see that the first exception in their deed says that the property is subject to a flood easement to the 810-foot flood line. The exact language reads, flood easements in favor of Duke Energy Carolinas LLC and riparian rights of others, including but not limited to the flood easement to flood to the 810 contour line. I don't think there's a dispute between the developer or even the Ratliff family or any of the neighbors that the property is under 810 feet. Have y'all considered approving a road system in which the road could be flooded? That's a design issue. That places Oconee County with liability. You're not going to get off with sovereign immunity in that situation. Now, I have no idea if Duke is ever going to flood to 810 feet. We have no idea. I can't predict that, but they have a right to. What would it look like? What would it look like for the county to have to deal with such a situation? Another component that is very odd in this particular development of a subdivision is the curvature of the road. I don't know if y'all have been out there to look at the subdivision or not, but it's not your standard access coming in off of a road where you have a straight ingress and egress into the subdivision. In order to get into this particular development, the way it's been designed, and I'm fascinated with engineers. I'm an engineer. My dad was an engineer. He picked up Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, moved it, set it back down. His name's engraved on the thing. It's kind of cool. I loved engineering work. And I love seeing the drawings of trying to figure out how to make something work. But I think practically speaking, when you're looking at the safety of travel of cars, ingress and egress into the development, with or without boat trailers, please, I encourage you to visit the site and look at it. The radius deviating around the southern area to get the road to stay within the property lines of the developer's property and then deviate back north will cause traffic accidents. There will be automobiles that will interfere with each other. I would encourage you to look at this site. I'm not aware of any other subdivision development where y'all have approved the access based on such curvature being in place as part of the subdivision plan. We've already discussed the issue of Oconee County's prescriptive right and y'all's duty to maintain, Oconee County's potential duty to maintain the existing black asphalt. There's obviously a dispute, right? Mr. McDuff has brought up the issue. Does Oconee have this right? Do they not have this right? Who paved the road? Who does not pave the road? Where does Oconee County stop? Where does Oconee County exist? This is a critical issue as to what the developer's rights are in the subdivision. But more so, if Oconee County does not have the right, then who has the right to maintain the access getting up to this subdivision, which presents another safety issue. And we've talked about Johns Marine, the whole issue of how control will maintain, or how this development will impact Johns Marine and Jimmy's livelihood. I've been down there myself. My boys and I have a race to see how fast we can get our jet skis in the ramp and get off Jimmy's property. Jimmy knows he is compensated for my right to use his boat ramp. Our record right now is 45 seconds. We can drop the skis off, get them in the water in 45 seconds. But nonetheless, it is an issue with getting boat trailers in and out of the driveway in his parking area where his building is located relative to the road right-of-way, relative to the asphalt, and even relative to this new road system that's going to be put in place. Lastly, if we think about on the appellate court level, in Rush versus City of Greenville, this is a Supreme Court case of South Carolina. It says, going further and assuming that they will suffer substantially in a financial way, this is obviously the only hardship that could possibly be expected to result to them. And that alone is not sufficient. Although it is an element in the situation which is entitled to fair and careful consideration, mere disadvantage in property value or income or both to a single owner of property resulting from application of zoning restrictions does not warrant relaxation in his favor on the ground of practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship. Therefore, the financial considerations of whether the developer may or may not be more profitable in the subdivision cannot be taken into consideration in the variance request. And that's what the appellate court's going to look at if it heads in that direction. Therefore, and is the property peculiar? I have to say yes. The property's probably peculiar. You're going to be able to check that box. Do these conditions do not apply to other properties? There are plenty of properties that are flagpole lots in this county that have very limited road frontage, and guess what? They don't get developed. You have regulations that prevent development of such properties. That's why you'll have these regulations. So the fact that just because they have a snaky access to the property, that alone is not sufficient to warrant the variance. There are plenty of properties that have unusual topography or unusual access. Third, utilization. Can they utilize the property? Absolutely. They can build 4 houses on it. I'm willing to wire transfer some money to Mr. Andely tomorrow for a 5-acre tract. You'd like me to do that? But nonetheless, the property can be sold, the property can be developed, and the property can be utilized. Whether it can be utilized for 19 lots is a matter of the subdivision regulations. Lastly, does harm? Yes, there's harm. There's increased traffic. There's an impact on possibly Mr. Jimmy's Marine. There's other houses on Ellenberg Road that have to deal with the right-of-way of Ellenberg, not at this location, but west of this location, closer to Knox Road, where the Ellenberg snakes in and out, and the traffic will obviously impede that safety of cars coming and going. And so for all the above reasons, I feel that the variance should be denied, and I don't think the 4 prongs can satisfactorily be approved in order for you to grant the variance.
Thank you, Mr. Knox. Excuse me, Mr. Knott. Chris Holder?
I'd like to thank the council for the time. My name is Chris Holder. I live in Greenville, South Carolina, but I grew up on the north end of this lake in the 70s and 80s when my family's land, the farmhouse right by Highway 11 bridge, and the girls' camp were about the only thing that was out there. So I spent the majority of my life on this lake. And I just want to make a couple of points. If you refer to some of the pictures that are in the back of Jimmy's letter, it's very easy to see where his pad ends, where the proposed extra concrete would be. This is very much, if you've not been there, it's very much like a cul-de-sac without being round. And Jimmy requires all of that land to be able to operate, pull boats in and out. And I can see at some point in time, especially if there are 19 homes on this piece of property, that he's going to be pulling a boat in after dark or even during the day, and there's going to be so much traffic on that road that eventually an accident is going to occur, especially with the jog in the road that they're proposing. The other thing is a pragmatic issue. Ellenberg Road is not much more than a big driveway if you've been down it. And it makes me nervous as all get out, going down the road without a boat on the back of my truck. And I can't imagine what it's going to be like over probably the next 10 years if this were to be approved, what the traffic would be like on that road, because about halfway up Ellenberg Road through the twist, there's a 60, 70, 80-foot drop that goes at least a football field in length through those curves. So it is a very narrow road. It's one that has to be traveled very slowly, and if you've got that many homes and people coming in and out, you're eventually going to have an accident. But from a pragmatic standpoint, the way I see it and what they're proposing, he's going to be out in that road dozens of times a day, and eventually that's going to cause an accident. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. John Reeves.
You have enough to deal with. I'm going to surrender my time.
You're welcome to say something. Roger Chapman.
Yes, the same response. I'll pass. All those before me have succinctly, more than succinctly, addressed my concerns, recommending that you oppose it.
Thank you for your consideration, sir. John Martin.
I'm John Martin. I've been down in South Carolina about 20 years now. Jimmy is the best boat mechanic I've ever had. And I've been doing this for a long time. I had a lot of boats in my life. I don't want to lose him. I don't want him to lose his business. He has gotten me out of Lake Kiwi a couple times with a broken boat. I've used his facility both pulling in boats, and I use it now as a boat access because I don't have a trailer anymore. So what this scares me as a customer is I'm going to lose the best boat mechanic I know. Number two, what I'm starting to learn is if this becomes a legal issue, Oconee County is going to have to go to court, and I'm an Oconee County resident, which means we're going to be paying for this. Is that correct, Mr. McDuff?
I'm hoping somebody's gonna pay for me, but that's.
And I don't think our money should be spent on legal fees for this, and I'm strictly against approving this variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Frank Powell.
I surrender my time.
Thank you, sir. Those are all the people who have signed up. Anyone else want to say something?
If I may, I will not take as much time as Mr. McDuff. I'm Larry Brandt, I'm an attorney.
Mr. Brandt, could we wait until we're finished with the, we're going to have a chance for rebuttal from the, from your camp.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
I'd
So-
like to say something.
Yes, sir. State your name, please.
Bruce Hadley, I live in Seneca. And, you know, from listening to all this, I don't see how you all can vote on this based on that land where that road is out in front of him is private property. That's my first observation. My second observation is there's no other facility on the north end of the lake that is like this. And you all haven't planned for that, another facility to be put in somewhere else. And that's poor planning. That's my observation.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Who's next? Man in the center here.
Barry Steele, I live on the lake, 35 years. I guess I've known Jimmy since he was in elementary school, born. My concerns are, as far as the way that right now, they have trouble getting 50 feet. They're fighting for 50 feet. They've taken land that was, I've been through all these woods over the years, and I believe that it was well below the 804 that they've been backfilling into. So I think they have artificially raised up the level of the ground, the land that has been lost to the lake and erosion. Which brings me to the question is, as they move the road, if that's their intention, what is their intention to stabilize the shoreline in order to prevent new erosion that's going to take it from 32 feet down to 20 feet? I haven't seen anything in their plan about that. Additionally, we're talking about delivery trucks. You guys are talking about delivery trucks like it's a UPS truck, and you're going to turn it around in 40 feet. A lot of their deliveries come in on a tractor trailer, 40-foot trailer. We're talking about a boat engine where you got to lift it out with a forklift. One lane is going to be blocked as long as it takes for them to get that thing in there, for Jimmy to come to the shop if he's out on a call, to pull that engine out. That's going to take this down to one lane. So you may as well assume that this is going to be a one-lane road, whether you add to it or not. There's just nothing you can do about that because that's part of doing business. You're not going to get a semi-truck off the road there. So essentially, the cul-de-sacs that they're talking about, they're going to be so useful. I may make UPS happy, but it's not going to do anything for a semi. So, thank you for your time.
Sir.
My name's Doug Cooper. I'm the president of the Harbor Oaks HOA. And I'm not going to go over all of the stuff that has already been beat to death, and there's a lot of information there. One thing I want to say about our community is we love living where we live. We're thankful for it. We realize I live at 566 Ellenberg Road. I don't know how you measure where county road services don't stop, but there's at least 3 different spots out there over several hundreds of yards where it looks like it went over time. That again, I would encourage you, as Mr. Knott did, to please individually go back down there and personally walk it. And I think July 31st at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning, 7 truckload triaxles came in and backfilled things that you already been given photos of. Delivery trucks and things like that, there's only my house, a rental house, Chad's house, and another house on that road. Because when you come into Harbor Oaks, the tractor trailers have to pull into Rollingwood Drive and then back all the way from there down to Johns Marine to unload or load whatever needs to be done. And these are tractor trailers. They don't back up quickly. They don't stay in one lane, and they're there for a while. That's not a big deal for us. with the traffic, with the houses that are there. You put 20 more houses down there, that's a big issue. We invested, I've written several letters or emails to you and to Duke Energy. We're, again, not opposed to the development. The density is the issue. They have access to that. They can develop it. We're all about the safety. We've had near misses in our neighborhood. We spent several thousands of dollars to redo the entrance to our neighborhood because we had safety concerns from the existing traffic that's going up and down there daily with boats being dropped off, boats being picked up, deliveries. There's a lot of traffic there. This, we don't know if it's rentals. Well, rentals bring with it 4 to 6 vehicles every time they come, and they're in and out all week long that they're there because they need to go get more groceries and whatever. This road just can't handle that. And you've heard all the other legal issues. We want somebody to be concerned about the safety. I talked to the developer and I told him that was our sole issue as a community. And the answer I got was roads were made for people. People need to stay off the roads if they don't want to get hurt. We have a tremendous number of walkers every morning. We have development. If you've been on Ellenberg Road to the west, there's a big bunch of S-turns there that have these vertical drops. There's a house being built now that's one of the other developments, subdivisions, cottages at River Birch. They're building there now, and every day they're blocking the road. And you can't see it coming around that turn. And if you're a tractor trailer, if you're a boat, there have been numerous near misses. And I get there's a lot of legal issues, but for the constituents of the county and the safety of not only Harbor Oaks, but the future residents, whoever they may be, at that end of that peninsula, this needs to be a consideration. Somebody is going to get hurt. There's no way to turn a tractor trailer around down here. And if you take tractor trailers for sod or Yoders or whatever, all the way up in through there, and they're going to have to back down from Rollingwood Drive, and then either pull out or pull down in there and back all the way back up again, you're going to be pushing half mile or a mile. And they're going to block all traffic while they're doing it, or emergency vehicles. So I just ask that someone pay attention to the safety of this and the benefit of the residents today and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Who's next? The lady back here waving her hand very early in the presentations. I'm not sure where she's gone.
She left.
She gave up?
Yeah, she left.
I'm sorry. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I spoke earlier.
You spoke earlier.
In my haste.
Got it. I understood that. Yes, thank you. We understand your concern about.
I'm going to get my guy glasses. See.
Your concern is boat traffic.
I know the map better.
Your concern is boat traffic in your neighborhood, in the neighborhood on the lake. Okay.
And I've been down that road, and I'll never drive my trailer, pull that boat. I come in the water, I take my bicycle off the boat and go up the road.
Okay, where we're at now is.
I think the attorney for the.
Yes, I'll get there. What I'm going to do now is we have that many emails concerning this project. I'm going to read a few excerpts from these to make sure that we've covered kind of the content of the emails. At that time, then I'll ask the developer to make any comments they have. Is that okay with Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair, could we take a 5-minute conference break?
Sure.
Super strong bladders, I'm sure y'all practice at it, but I'm
Let that satisfy some of the board also. Okay, 5 minutes. Please be quick.
Please, excuse me, vote.
I move that we take a 5-minute break for.
So moved.
Move second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay.
Oppose.
Got order, please? I entertain a motion for board to reconvene our meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye, raise your hand. All in favor, reconvene the meeting. I think it's 7-0. Please have a seat. Okay, not to belabor the subject, I do have close to, I don't know, 75 or 80 emails here. I'm not gonna read them all. But in fairness to these folks, and some of them have already spoken, so we don't need to hear about them. But just in fairness, I just want to represent some of these emails. This is from Mike Cobble. This variance request is not a matter of small discrepancy, but 18 of 50 feet deficiency in right-of-way, amounting to over 1/3 deviation from the requirements. In fact, the present and existing status of this entry site is unchanged since the current owner purchased the property. Denial of the variance does not add any additional impairment beyond owner's initial acceptance of the site. We concede that enabling the maximum number of density of homes on Lake Kiwi does enhance Coney County tax revenue, but oppose this as a primary determinant of variance decisions. We believe that government should play a primary protective role in preserving the quality of life and investment of pre-existing property owners by not undermining the effects of their prior investment decisions, which are based on prior zoning conditions. And he's supporting Johns Marine. Okay, this is from Joyce and Vince Malanga. It is our understanding that there's a variance request to be voted on tonight regarding access to a proposed subdivision across from Johns Marine. We believe that the proposed road variance from 50 to 32 feet in front of, 31.9 feet in front of Johns Marine will create several issues of concern to the business, its hundreds of customers, and future residents of the new subdivision. As a 25-plus year customer of Johns Marine, we're concerned that the construction vehicles and the ultimate increase in traffic on Ellenberg Road as a result of this new subdivision will create safety issues and difficulty trailing boats out. Ellenberg Road in front of Johns Marine is narrow currently and requires one vehicle to drive on the shoulder if someone is passing while pulling a boat. Okay, Dan and Jody Paul write, the proposed narrower road will be a big safety issue. How will fire trucks and construction equipment be able to safely pass through there? Where will the runoff water go? Toward the adjoining business? Off the road into the 804? If the runoff causes a washout on the steep side of the road, how will emergency vehicles access the neighborhood? The developer only has access to half of the current road. How are they going to safely run utilities under there without undermining the steep 804 side of the road, or the side owned by Johns Marine? There's a reason the county specified that 50 feet is a minimum for these roads for safety. The developer knew this going into the project. Johns Marine has been there the whole time. The fact that a business is blocking their big plans and there is a county ordinance prohibiting that, what they do is not surprise. The fact that the county will get tax revenue from this project should not be a reason for the safety of the neighborhood to be impeded. Jan Ratliff writes, concerned about safety. I have a note here from Amy Coffin. I don't think we heard from Ms. Amy Coffin. She is the mother of...
The daughter.
The daughter. And you didn't want to... You passed on saying anything earlier. Okay.
It was me.
That was the other daughter.
The oldest daughter.
Okay.
I'm Sherry Chris.
So, I think we've heard your concerns.
Yes, I did an email.
We have heard those concerns. Okay. Denying the variance does not impede the property owner's right to use the property. The owner, this is from James Coley. Did we hear from Mr. Coley?
No, that's not from me.
Pardon me?
I think you've just got, it's to me probably.
Oh, it's to you, I'm sorry. Oh, this is for Chad Knott. Mr. Knott, we did hear. Everyone's got to have a name tag on, please. This is from Mr. Knott, and we did hear from Mr. Knott. Another involved. Okay. The bulk of these, I will say, are, number one, support for Johns Marine and concern that his business may be impacted. So everyone's in kind of uniform agreement there. Okay, and I think we heard from Mr. Cooper. No, maybe not. So this addresses safety. Harbor Oaks has spent several $1,000s last year altering the entrance at Rolling Wood Drive to enhance the safety of both Ellenberg Road and Rolling Wood Drive drivers and pedestrians. There's a lot more traffic on this road than one would imagine. Much of it is Johns Marine and delivery traffic. We have had several issues in the past, and it is very much an issue given the developer's current construction on Upper Ellenberg Road. When I discussed our concerns with the developer regarding road safety, he responded, "Those roads are built for cars and people concerned don't want to get hurt, they need to stay off them." We've heard that already.
That's the last time we heard from.
Okay. Johns Marine typically receives 1 to 2 semi-trailers per week. Yes, we've heard all that. Yep. Okay. Okay. I don't want to minimize these, but again, I would reiterate, there's great support for Johns Marine and the services they do provide. Everyone recognizes it's a long-term asset to the county and the people on the lake, and I don't think we need to belabor the subject anymore. Is there anyone else now? So that's going to conclude our chance for members of the audience to participate. Okay, speak now. We don't have a chance later on. You don't get a chance. When we're talking up here, you don't get a chance to talk with us, so now's your chance. Okay, now's the chance for the requester to speak about some of the issues raised and what you think the solutions are.
If I may.
Mr. Brandt, yes, sir.
I want to tell y'all how much impressed I am with this board tonight. I've appeared before the similar boards and certainly courts, and y'all have been most engaged and interested, and those, I guess that's why you're getting the big paychecks.
Definitely.
But
anyway,
I applaud you. And thank you for being so patient and listening to all these people. Good points were made on both sides. The only thing I want to say is my colleague, Mr. McDuff, stated that prescriptive easements have to be declared by the court. And I disagree with that. That's a legal argument between us. That the use and the public of a roadway creates it if it's for 20 continuous years. Now, up until recently, I don't know where the sign is now, but a couple of months ago, I went out there and the sign of public maintenance ends here was on the border of my client's property, where it begins. No one here has challenged that the road has not been there for more than 20 years. And that is what, the facts is what the court looks at to declare the easement. The issue here tonight is not whether or not I think there's an easement there. It clearly is, because nobody's challenged that. The question is from the end of that public roadway, would they be entitled to a variance of the 50 feet? And that's what it is. And whether it's 4 houses, whether there's 19 houses, they're asking for 50 feet. The ordinance says 50 feet. And they can't put a road in there to even service, decent road in there without a variance that would service even 4 homes. So certainly, that is creating a burden on the property owners at this time. But again, Duke has control of anything below the 804 contour. That's not this board and it's not the county, it's Duke Power. And they hold it with a powerful hand. So that issue is not before this board. But certainly, I've heard here that, maybe some further dialogue between the parties might be able to work something out. Certainly, if that easement is out there, and I submit to you it is, hasn't been challenged, that they're giving more of an easement, and they can convey that to be commit that to the Ratliffs or the public, whatever would take it, but they want to move the road over so they can get in there. That even give and use just a portion of what's there now as part of that roadway, but all that roadway won't be on that prescriptive easement. But Ratliff will be gaining, with that move of that road over, will be gaining some frontage to that property, and he'll have more room for moving boats, et cetera. But that's all I wanted to say. Y'all have heard everything hashed over pretty well. We've had some good speakers both sides of the coin. And again, y'all have been most engaged, and I know you're going to do your best to do what you think's right, and that's all anybody can ask to come before the board.
I have a question, sir.
Yes.
Really, just from your point of view, both sides have presented legal issues with access, particularly access to Johns Marine. Obviously, if you own part of the road, part of the parcel that abuts his pad, and you could presumably put a fence on there at some point in time,
No.
if you truly own that. That's the argument I hear from Mr. McDuff, is that, because of these easement issues and legal issues on who owns the road, does the county own it, who has legal control over the road?
Yes,
Are you folks willing to settle that issue so that there are no access issues to the business? Is that
I
clear?
don't think, as far as access, if what you've been on access, there's no access issue based on the facts as I believe them to be, and it's been presented to me with the 20 years or more, forever really, of being public roadway. And there's nothing of record that I know about that the county abandoned the roadway down to or beyond that maintenance sign, which is on the border of my client's property. So, yes, an easement, a person that uses the easement, he mentioned Servian Estate and Dominant Estate. Servian Estate is the owner of the fee. There's no doubt that if the Ratliff's property line on their property, if that road where it sits today, if their property line encompasses that road, they own the fee. But it's subject to the use of the dominant estate for the use of ingress and egress. In the last probably 15 years, I've had more of these kind of issues come up than I had in the whole prior practice of law. And I came back from the military and started practicing in Oconee County in 1975. And it seems like, and I guess that's because the world and even Oconee County is getting more crowded. And the lake, when I came back here, you could get in a boat, you could go up to the dam, come back, maybe you'd see 4 fishermen in a cove, and it was private. And I played on the lake for 4 or 5 years, and then I got away from it. Probably the best decision I ever made.
Let's clarify something real quick, because what they're saying is they're going to move the road. They are proposing to move the road, and that's going to leave a gap between where Ratliff's property is and where their property is. Are you saying that they're going to deed, in fee simple, that strip of land from where they move the road?
No, I can't say that because I'm not making can't make those decisions. What I'm saying to you is that their plan, that road had, when they move the road over to get the width they need, they're only going to use a portion of the prescriptive easement, which they have a right to do anyway.
that's fine, but we don't want a gap of land
I agree with that.
for a lawsuit in the future. So I'm asking now,
Well-
is the developer prepared to deed to John's Marina that strip of land where they move the road and gap between his property line and his easement and where they're gonna put the proposed road?
Well, I don't see as that's consideration if they grant a public easement across that roadway and in that, whether they deed it to them or not, the road will be there, the same road will be there, it's always been there, plus an additional, where they come together, plus an additional, width. As I saw the plans.
I understand it'll be there, but the question is,
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we are willing to deed it.
They
Be
can-
simple, yes.
But that's up to them, I can't make that decision. They say yes, they're willing to do it.
We have no use for a 2-inch strip of land that goes through.
I understand, that's an issue that's been raised, and we're trying to deal with all this, and you folks haven't talked to each other, so.
But anyway, that's it. Whether there's 4 houses in there or whether there's 19, they're asking for the variance. And without that, they can't pave it. They can't do much of anything. 4 houses is a subdivision.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, does the developer have any, number of issues were raised, does the developer have anything further they'd like to say?
Sir.
Just a couple of comments to address some of the questions that were brought up. I believe Mr. Jay Ratliff, is that correct, Jay? Okay. Said that, for example, the cul-de-sac wasn't big enough for emergency services space. The cul-de-sac's built to county spec, just like any other cul-de-sac is built in Oconee County. It's built the way it's supposed to be built according to roads and bridges. They're the authority. We build it to the size that they say to build it. If you'll look, the questions were asked if there was, I think implied, that there was, that small area was quote messed with, and where did these numbers come from? If you'll look at the plat that's dated '08, which is way before me, okay? It's in your packet. It's dated '08. You can ask our engineer, they match. The ones that we're working off of right now shows 32 feet, basically. The one in '08 shows 32 as well. Nothing's been altered. We've not changed the elevation. So I met Lake Management out there with the surveyor, with the old plat, with the new. Everybody's in agreement. Lake Management says, as long as you stay out of my property, don't blow anything above the 804, they don't care. We have no intention of going into the 804. If you'll look at your Exhibit 1, I believe it was, it very specifically, yes, Exhibit 1. Nope, I got that for you. If you will look at Exhibit 1, this line right here, right, this is from the engineer. If you'll notice, it is labeled 804. This also shows that the existing road, or the proposed road, excuse me, there's a number of feet in between the 804 and the edge of asphalt. So are we going to put a road in the 804? We are not. So another point that was brought up by someone else was the...
Correct. You said Lake Management, that's Duke Lake Management.
That's correct.
You have met with Duke, and they have agreed that you're not impinging on their property.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
We're okay with that?
Christy Brock, you're welcome to call her and ask her.
No, that's okay.
Let's see. Yeah, we did that. As far as this is a note we've already covered, but we'll do it again. As far as anything that's in between, I have no desire to have a 2-inch or 4-inch strip of property separating the road from Jimmy at all. I told Jimmy in the beginning that I was going to shift that road as far over as I could in order to help him out. So he may have broke up with me, but I didn't break up with him. I'm still going to do what I said I was going to do. I'm pushing that road as far as I can to get it out of his way. What it does is it more than doubles the space that he has to operate now. It's very true. If you could call the room into order, I would greatly appreciate it.
If I could what?
Call the room into order. The talking in the back is distracting.
If there is any talking, please don't do it. I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Another question was asked about the 810 flood easement, all right? Now, this is a popular one. There's an 810 flood easement on, everywhere on the lake, right? Not just here. There's plenty of roads and everything else that drop into that flood easement. That is literally in case the dam breaks. It's not suggesting that they can or even have the ability to raise it to the 810. They don't. That is a number in case the dam, Jocassee blows out, floods the lake, the water could come up to that, and they're saying they're not responsible if that happens. It has nothing to do, it's not a flood, it's not building in a flood plain, all right? And we've dealt with this over the years, people are just simply not understanding it. It's not saying or suggesting anything can't be built below that. What they're saying is if, and I suggest this to you, if Jocassee blows out, we've got more problems than this little piece of road. So,
Okay, so what you're saying is the flood easement is a Duke requirement. It has nothing to do with the FEMA flood easements that are put on various properties on, we all know, around rivers, lakes and rivers that may flood out.
Right.
That's a separate issue.
That's correct. It's not, you can't, if you go up there and you look where it shows those flood plains, right? It's not on there, because that's not what that is. So I had this with a friend of mine 20 years ago, I guess. He had a closing attorney, not from this area, and he got hung up on the 810. He had to finally drive up here to look at the flood maps to actually see, and we drew pictures and everything. He finally got it. That's not what that's referring to. If you're right around the lake, you'll see a number of structures that are on the super flat lots. They're going to be in the 810. So it's just not what that is.
So what's your take on the county not owning that section of the road?
What section?
The section from where the road stopped and the double line stopped and it continued on, where the argument Mr. McDuff made, where it was actually you and Jimmy own that section of road. The county has nothing to do with it.
I disagree with that. I mean, it is a prescriptive easement. It's been established. I mean, roads, if you look in the Roads and Bridges letter, they even talk about the established prescriptive easement. And again, this is something I'll be happy to let them out. And this is something that normally we work out during the construction process. We're just not at that phase of it. But if we decide, if you see right here, if I can get to the right one. Yeah, can you go to 4, please? I can see this better. Oh, one of us.
You going?
Yeah. 2, 3, 4. Okay. So.
They can't see yours.
Sorry. So, the existing road is here, right? If with this ordinance is granting if we move it over onto our property, is there still a claim that the county has an easement through that? There is. But you petition the county to release the easement and basically say, give me my property back. You've been using it for however long. You're not using it for the purpose of, and the only purpose of that road was to access the property behind it, the subject property. So if we're not using it for that anymore, then you go to the county and ask them to give it back to you. This can be done, correct? Yeah. It's not that bad. Stabilizing the shoreline, someone asked about that. I told Duke, as a courtesy, I said, so we built the bulk of the subdivisions on the south end of Lake Keowee. I was construction manager for however many years for my predecessor, who was John Hamrick. What I told Lake Management I would do, I know, and I've got a tractor, so I'm not judging anybody that likes to move dirt around, but graders do like to knock stuff down. I mean, they've got tractors. That area is, because it's very, very narrow, I very much can see somebody with no ill will intended pulling in there, parking something, whatever. I told Lake Management that we would happily.
Water?
That'd be great. We would happily volunteer to go in and put in a masonry, stacked stone, or flagstone, one of the two, wall, that right above the 804, so that nobody can pull in there, because I'm gonna put a wall there. I'm blocking it. Nothing, it's gonna be attractive, it's gonna tie in with the neighborhood, all that good stuff, but we're gonna make sure that, especially in that area, and what we did, before we underbrushed it. So in order to see it, right? So you cut all the thin stuff out. Before underbrushing, I had a surveyor go in and mark that 804 all the way around. Because I have no desire to get into the 804. It's a terrible fight with lake management. You don't want to do it, trust me. So it was marked all the way around, but to control any runoff, first off, it's a curbed and guttered road. Okay? Curbs do multiple things. They're not just there to look pretty. They're there to control water. That's what a curb does. So a curbed road is basically a giant drain, and those curbs help control any and all runoff that hits that road. It goes into the drain that we direct. We direct where it goes. So as far as all this running down into Jimmy's property, that's simply inaccurate. That's not how roads are designed. So it may have happened back in 1942, but it doesn't anymore. So any of the runoff, et cetera, will be handled as it's required for me to do by law anyway. I don't have a choice. I would, but either way, that's not an actual concern. So not anymore, not today's world. Someone said that no trucks the trucks from Yoder's can't turn around. Well, if you'll go back to example 1 where it shows the aerial, exhibit 1, yep, 2, sorry, 2. If you'll see, if trucks, like even the big ones that bring in trusses and stuff from construction companies, if they weren't able to back out or to turn around in cul-de-sacs, then you wouldn't have any houses in any subdivisions anywhere. How did they turn around? That's the whole point. This is put in, any of Jimmy's people, I plan on using it myself. You can turn anything you want to around here, including your delivery trucks. Any construction that goes on, any of the construction trucks, they can turn around right here. Or they can turn around inside the lot. It's irrelevant. It's not a real life situation. They can get big trucks in and out for construction. So
you're saying you do not have to go up, I forget the name of the road that enters into a subdivision where trucks are currently pulling in and backing down to service Jimmy's?
We're alleviating that problem.
You think, you're claiming that semis can turn around at the cul-de-sac that you're going to put in?
Now, are they going to be able to make the loop? Well, they might have to do a 3-point turn, probably. Can they do it? I've built 40-something subdivisions. I promise you they can. The next concern was the 30-foot easement. If you'll look in, actually, I believe Mike wrote some of them off a while ago, read some of them off. There's a lot of subdivisions. Waterford, for example. We built Waterford back in the day. It's one of my first subdivisions I ever built, right? Had no idea what I was doing, but it worked out right well. It's a lovely place. But if you look in some of the nicer subdivisions we have around the lake, a lot of those have a 30-foot easement. I need 20 foot for asphalt, and I need about 5 foot for utilities. I'm going to provide, as I'm required to do, provide exactly how I'm going to do that to the county. They have to say it's okay. I'm going to do it the same way I always have, in the way it's been done in all the other subdivisions that it's already been done in. This is not like this is some rarity. Like this is something that's never been happened before. That we're going to build a road with a 30-foot easement instead of a 50. It happens a lot, and up to prior to 13, it happened all the time. So that's not a big thing. Some of the comments were made that on such a narrow road. That's not a narrow road. It's a 20-foot road, just like the rest of them in Oconee County. They didn't make that road specifically narrower than they did the rest of them. I would suggest you the traffic. Will the traffic increase? Yes. Can the road handle that? Yes. It was built to county spec. So unlike most roads in the county, let's imagine this was somewhere else. This is a dead end. There is no through traffic from the other 42 neighborhoods on this side or the town of Seneca or Clemson. It's a dead end road. I'm simply extending a dead end road, and I'm allowing 19 people to use it is what I'm asking for. It's not, any dead end road is by nature less busy than one that isn't dead end. Because there's no one coming from that end. So it's not as busy, but a traffic study will tell us just exactly how much that is, which we fully intend to do. Let's see, what were a few others?
I'll pop up and just add a few things, give you some relief here. It's been brought up that the density is too much for this 15-plus-ish acre parcel. That's what is outlined in blue, it's around about 15-plus acres. Right now, under, the current ordinance we work with, we could put 30 houses there. But we're choosing not to do that. We're choosing 19 because that's right. That's what's like kind to the other areas. It's less than what Harbor Oaks currently has. Go ahead.
What's the average lot size, or what are the lot sizes?
Anywhere from, everything's over a half acre, but a half acre to max would probably be, which is standard, no more than 3/4. Which is, if you look at any of our subdivisions, that's about what they're all going to average. If you look at the adjacent subdivision, it's going to be very, very similar to, which, no, it's not adjacent, excuse me. It's back up the road a little bit, is Harbor Oaks. So,
Are these lots large enough to put a normal, kind of what I would call a normal-sized lake house on?
yes.
You're not going to have lot owners coming to us a year from now saying, hey, I need a variance for the side setbacks because I can't fit my nice house
Don't
on.
develop that way.
Not at all.
That-
If you look at any Crescent subdivision, it's going to be like kind. So there's also a deed restriction that would prohibit that. So Crescent Resources, which is the landholding division of Duke Power,
Understand.
when they sold it, they put in, you have those, they put deed restrictions on the size, as they do on every piece of property.
One of the letters we received said you had reduced the square footage requirements for houses so that you could fit them on the property. That's why I'm asking the question.
No, that's
So
completely.
It's still, if I recall, it's, the restriction is 1,600 square feet for a single-story house, 1,800 feet for a two-story house, the 1,000-foot footprint.
So a
And
story
you haven't
is.
changed those.
Yeah, no. So a story is not a basement. So the 1,600, like, which is what Riverstone is, they all vary between 1,600, 18, and 2, all of them.
All of what?
Square
All the-
footage minimums.
Of all the Crescent developments.
Oh, the Crescent developments, okay.
Correct.
So, what we assume normally is that they're gonna build a basement, a house with a basement, that's what
The
most people do.
topography lends itself to
Well, most
that.
people call it a lower level. So-
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is, but we don't count, that's not counted as a level, right? So you have to have 16 on the main level, and if you have a full basement, that's a 3,200 square foot home. So that's the smallest you can build. So if you choose to go up, of course, you're welcome to. But no, that's, there is no mini home situation. If you take a ride through Harbor Oaks with the one beside it, it's gonna feel exactly like that, only with the gate. And a little newer, obviously, because it's a newer subdivision. But it's gonna be built just like the ones in the area.
I apologize, I interrupted you, but I
No,
wanted to
that's
clarify
fine.
that.
I would like to know your questions based on what you've heard. I don't want to bring up every single point, but if there's things that you heard that you want clarification on, we'd like to be able to provide that
I
clarification.
think that's a reasonable request.
Where does the
Board have
gate
questions?
go you just mentioned?
Yeah. So if we'll go behind, right there.
Okay. So Jimmy will be able to use that cul-de-sac?
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Any other questions, folks?
Well, I guess lingering throughout all of this is who owns what property? And I'm hearing both sides that, hey, I own it, no, you own it, you own it. And,
I can point it out if it helps.
well, is there a definitive answer to that?
Yes.
There's a property line still there. Just because we're both allowed to drive on it, it doesn't mean that we don't own the dirt to the center line. I own, excuse me, the parcel in question, this original line, right? It's still a property line, just like any other. But there's an easement over the top of it. But he has, basically, and it may be off an inch or two, but basically, there's a real line right there. Here we go. Real line right there. And where this property stops, his starts. And what we're proposing is we're pulling it off of his property to get it out of his way, which provide him a tremendous amount more room right there, and we take full responsibility of the road.
And
He
we'll
gets his property
connect it to his property, so it is contiguous, so that he will be able to back trucks, trailers down to the ramp, down across the pad. We're willing to connect it. We're willing to deed it fee simple. So it becomes his.
And
It is his, and it remains his, without any type of encumbrance. It's just his land.
If I can ask, I think I've heard the dimension 22 feet. Is that How long is that? Is that the maximum, or how long is the 22 feet that he's gonna get extra?
How far out is it? Let's see, which one is that on?
It's either, in the quadrant or.
Page 6,
Page 6?
it's the red area, or the pink area.
No, I need the one that says, it shows the 22 feet.
No, go back.
Oh, that would be one. One has, I think, the 20.
Now go back to the 6,
Which one? I'm sorry.
that one.
Yeah.
That's right here.
Okay. So,
So that's graphic 3 in your packet.
Okay, so that's, okay.
And that notates that.
yeah, and goes on out past,
That's the additional area that he can maneuver and not be in the roadway.
Uh-huh. Okay, so it's a maximum of 22 feet, and it obviously tapers down to nothing, but about how long, it's kind of as a fat area? Trying to just help me understand.
About 160 feet.
160 feet is the kind of the fat area,
Correct.
and there's an additional more than 100 feet for a narrow tail.
Yep.
Okay. Everyone get what I'm asking there? Okay. You got anything else that you'd really like to say? We don't have any questions, it looks
I
like.
have one little closing statement. I think it's really obvious that everyone in the room really loves Jimmy and loves his business. We do too. We would not intentionally set out to harm him. That is not what we're trying to do. That is not at all what we're trying to do, and we're willing to work through any remedy to make it work. But we do not intend to put him out of business, want to put him out of business. I mean, I hope that one day he will service our boats again. This has been really difficult, this entire scenario, and we just want it to work. And we're willing to do what it takes to make it work.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close all the opportunity for input to the board. From now on, we're going to be discussing among ourselves. Please don't raise your hand and say, hey, I got something to say, because we're done with that phase of the business. Is that fair? What I'd like to do is, first of all, just open this whole issue up to discussion by the board before we go through the formal questions. Does that make sense to you folks? Okay, and we've got a lot of issues. I think we ought to try to make sure we cover the issues that have been raised so that we're fair to everybody.
I've got one burning question.
Yes, sir.
Does the county do we have the authority to give this based off of, if the county's maintained or if we abandoned it? It looks like they've given us where there's 2 lines where we've stopped paving, so, if the county doesn't, then we have no authority. That's my first question. Do we have that authority?
Kind of where I come out is, that's a legal question. We ain't got nothing to do with that.
Well, I think it needs to be tabled until somebody tells us.
I agree.
Totally
I
agree.
mean, you've got 2
We need
lawyers
to
out
know-
here that have 2 different opinions, and
We
we
need
need guidance on this before we make any decision.
And they say they're gonna do this stuff, but there's no there's nothing in writing to say they're gonna give him access right-of-way easement onto that, and, because the way I see it, that, what they're planning on doing will help Jimmy as far as keeping some boats out of the road, like on the pictures, but, Larry, the reason you're in all these court cases, because man's word's not his bond anymore, like it used to be in Oconee County. Now we gotta get lawyers involved in them, sorry. They get paid by the word. Y'all get paid by the word, I know that, but I'm just saying, is it possible for us to table that to
Well,
get some?
I think that's an excellent suggestion. I think that's,
I agree with that, but it sounds to me from what I heard, that this entire area is on the brink of problems with safety right now. And adding all this construction, everything else to it is gonna take it beyond. So safety's an issue in my opinion.
that's an issue I think we can deal with. What I hear suggesting is that we table any decision we make until we hear, and we'll have to say as part of that motion, what do we want to see coming out of that?
But it'd also be nice to see the 2 parties get together, because it sounds like, sitting here listening to them, that they could possibly get together and figure something out on their own.
And probably get a better solution than
And I
anything
think,
we would try to
we
impose
need
on
to know from our attorney, what our legal standing is in this matter.
Okay, so that's all part of the discussion around tabling, and it sounds like we can have a vote on that. There are other issues that we've talked tonight that I'd like to cover tonight, just so we're all together on what the issues are and what the impact might be on our decision. I think everyone agreed that Johns Marine is a valued asset to the community.
Absolutely.
No one wants to do anything to hamper his business long-term.
Absolutely.
He's a very valued asset. If, for Johns Marine, my perception is, that Jimmy right now depends on access and the use of the Ellenberg Road section in front of his house, whether he owns it, whoever owns the darn thing. He uses that to run his business, at least on some basis. And he's kind of long-term done that. Now, the developer is proposing to add 22 feet to Jimmy's property and move the road south so that it's as out of the way as possible. I personally think with the addition of that, and as I look at the bulk of his business is pulling boats out of the water, back him into his repair shop, looks like that helps rather than hinders running his business. Am I seeing that right?
I don't know, I think
Let's say you got 40 more cars going up and down there past his place that weren't going before.
Okay, so traffic is still an issue, that you're saying?
Traffic is definitely an issue.
Right,
Okay,
and if you look at the situation now, he's actually parking boats in part of where that road is, for part of his storage. He's moved his storage, is actually into the roadway. There's a boat parked there right now. But I saw it there when I was up there today, and it's also shown in the pictures that they provide. So, yeah,
But even if they put 3 houses in there, they can't park that boat there.
And also from a safety standpoint, if you go up that road, very, very windy, and there are people that are trying to walk on that road. I think it's dangerous as it is right now, for the walkers. Add another 20 houses, and potentially half of them maybe with renters, and you've really compounded the problem with traffic going up and down there. Plus, there are people from outside the area, and they're not going to be paying that much attention to the safety aspects. If they're not residents, if they turn out to be renters.
I don't know where we're going with this, but I don't think we really are in position where we're talking about how many homes can they build in that subdivision, right?
I'm only talking
That's off the table. We're really talking about.
I'm talking
just
about the
road.
safety aspect of the additional amount of cars going up and down the road that's already a hazardous road. In fact, there's one house that's being built right there, and the contractors are out into the road. You're almost afraid to go around it for fear somebody's gonna come at you from the other end.
Okay, anything else on that subject? I guess, from my personal point of view on road safety and traffic, I live down South Cove Road, which is about 2 miles long, dead ends at South Cove Park, and there's a lot of traffic on there. There is traffic on there. I guess I would not characterize it as a lot of traffic. There is traffic along there. There's probably 200 homes, at least 200 homes off South Cove Road, and you have the traffic coming from the county park with little boys hauling their bass boats up and down the road. And South Cove Road has traffic, but it's just not that heavy.
While we're talking about safety, I'd just like to mention section 26-8, variance from road standards. I think you all have a copy of this.
Yes, good.
The paramount issue for all variance requests shall be the reasonable safety of the road under the proposed circumstance. I think that needs to be included in the minutes.
That's talking about is the road, I think that's talking about the road passing through the variance area, that particular road. It's not talking about the safety of Ellenberg Road in general.
No, it's talking about exactly what we're looking at
Variance
given the
road.
variance.
The variance road, would that be safe?
Which goes back to the point of, I think we're getting the cart before the horse.
Right.
We need to know who owns the road.
Yeah.
We need to know, did Oconee County, when it moved signs, when it did whatever, that's what reason I asked the question of who paved. Because to me, if Oconee County paved down to that point, then the county either still owns that land, or they had to sell the land off. one or the other. So they had to abandon it. And nobody has been able to say that road has been abandoned. The only thing we're hearing is that the road end sign starts here and goes back here. Well, anybody could move that road. I mean, I think that we're going past it, that until we get that answer, because if it's not, if it's privately owned road, we're just sitting here spinning our wheels for nothing. They're like to get together.
So what is your draw there? We've talked about tabling this, so until we get some answers to these questions.
Right.
Would you rather do that and then come back and discuss all the other ancillary issues?
I think that would make more sense.
Is that what you want to do?
That makes more sense.
I'm not fighting that.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta get
Okay,
that
well,
answer first.
okay, so how about someone trying to craft a motion then? And we're not going to get into deciding this issue tonight, it sounds like. We're going to decide to table, we're going to have a motion to table, so we need to word the tabling motion just right. I think one issue we need to resolve is the ownership. Ownership of the property.
Ownership. Present ownership, and if it was at one time, if it was an Oconee County road, then it has been abandoned.
It was a state road.
Or if it was a state road and was abandoned.
And that we request two parties get together to try to resolve this
Exactly,
issue
that's.
without us having to.
And that's an important
Yeah,
part of
that they try to work this thing, you know, come.
They're gonna end up with a better solution if they work it out themselves and if we try to tell them what.
Well, there you go again, they've gotta know who owns the road.
That's right. They got- That's a legal issue that we aren't prepared to address.
Right.
Okay. And, okay, to resolve all the other issues, a primary issue is who's gonna own that slice? The developer said he didn't wanna own it, he'll deed it in fee simple.
Right of way.
We wanna
But
make sure that is
We need a
resolved.
contract or something resolving that, because, you know, saying and doing is always two different things.
Okay. Were there any other overriding issues that we ought to address in our motion?
No.
I'll try and say something here if we get everything we want in there.
I think the two issues are ownership and allowing the two parties to try to work things out amongst themselves.
Okay. I move that we table this request, and specifically request that planning help us resolve the ownership issue, who owns the property, and that the two parties to this get together to resolve their issues and come back holding hands and say, yes, we agree. And specifically to resolve the deeding issue, as opposed to just saying we're going to do something.
Yep.
Part of that discussion would be to resolve the deed issue on the additional property going to Ratliff.
And qualify it with the fact that we would table it until such time as they get back to us.
Yes, we'll look for those parties to come back to planning to help schedule another meeting at a future date to,
Tell us if they're ready to discuss.
okay.
So moved.
That's my motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Raise your hand, please. 7 ayes, no nos. Okay, guys, thank you. The meeting is adjourned. Oh, I need a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second? All in favor of adjournment? All in favor of adjournment?